Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 168, titled 2022 NHL Draft Preview. It's going to be 3 times a power hour as we're going for a few hours tonight to preview the NHL Draft. We've got a lot of great guests. We've got a lot of content for you. Who will the Devils pick? I don't know, as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks, Editor-in-Chief Nick Villano. Oh, the next 24 hours is going to be absolutely amazing. Also, tomorrow night at Pasta Grill by Enzo's on 1916 Route 57 in beautiful Hackettstown, New Jersey. We're going to have our shindig. We're going to have our annual NHL draft party, live podcast, live music, viewing party, all the above. Come hang out with us at Pasta Grill by Enzo's. Nick, how are you, my friend? You've been working hard on this podcast.
Hard on the podcast, hard on the blog, it's what a day, Sam. I mean, honestly, it was already going to be a crazy day we got 3 hours of draft content coming to your faces, to your ear holes, to your drive homes, to your hanging out at homes, working at home, whatever y'all are doing, listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast. Maybe you're listening live on Facebook. Maybe you're over on the YouTubes. Maybe you're on the Twitter sphere, wherever you are. Check us out. Are we still on Twitch? Do we do Twitch?
I put a hold on Twitch, even though I say Twitch.
Screw Twitch. We don't care about Twitch. We don't play video games on here. We play hockey. Real hockey talk.
We'll be back on Twitch in October. There's a little tech issue.
Screw Twitch. I hate Twitch. Whatever. Anyway, we got 5 phenomenal guests coming on to talk about every which way of the NHL draft coming up. And Sam, we're just about an hour removed from the end of a New Jersey Devils press conference where we learned a ton. So I just want to get right into the headlines because we got lots of draft people coming on. So we're going to get into the draft. We're going to talk a lot about the draft tonight, but I got to
let's kick the tires.
Here's 2 things I learned. We are picking somebody at 2nd overall tomorrow night, and Jesper Bratt will only go anywhere if he makes it a point to. They've made an offer to him. They made an offer. I don't think it's an offer that he can't refuse, but it's an offer that's significant. I think it's an offer that's worthwhile. I think Kevin Weeks got that because Kevin Weeks came out right before the press conference and said that he thinks that Jesper Bratt is going to make somewhere in between $6.75 and $7 million. He didn't get that number out of nowhere, and that's a very specific number to just kind of pull out of thin air. So I think that Kevin Weeks is on to something. I think that the Devils offered him either a 6 or a 7 in that price range. I would think it's 6. Something tells me it's 6, but maybe it's 7. Maybe that's because Tom Fitzgerald came out and said that the deal is significant and that it's something that shows the commitment from Josh Harris and David Blitzer. Maybe it's 8. Maybe Tom Fitzgerald offered him an 8-year deal. It's possible. Maybe that was what he was talking about. They offered him a max deal. And maybe that's kind of the consternation with the agent is that do you want to sign for 8 years at this number when the cap could go up? That's a possibility there. But 8 years, to get that kind of locked in for a decent number like $7 million, not a bad situation. But even more significantly than that, you have Frank Saravalli coming out saying that Bratt has – there's been conversations around Bratt. Those conversations do not start with the Devils. Tom Fitzgerald opened this case and shut it completely, saying he has not ever put Jesper Bratt on the block. He has not ever had a conversation about trading Jesper Bratt. Jesper Bratt is not available. You hear that, everybody? You can't have him for Jeff Petrie. You can't have him for JT Miller. You can't have him for anybody. Jesper Bratt is not available. Period. End of story.
That's a bold statement, big statement by the big guy, by Tom Fitzgerald. He put it out there. He was very transparent, as far as I'm concerned, with Jesper Bratt about the second overall pick. And that means a lot. We learned a lot from it. We definitely got some good questions out of our new reporter friend from the Star Ledger, NJ.com, asking some of the questions. And I'll tell you, Nick, I'll tell you something. I was pretty happy after listening and watching that presser. Very happy so far.
Yeah.
Till tomorrow, of course, because there's going to be some big moves.
You think so?
I think so.
Talk about it. Kent Hughes said it. Kent Hughes, the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, said that he thinks that there's going to be some moves. I don't think it's the Devils. I think Tom Fitzgerald is pretty. Just the way he kind of spoke at the press conference today, it seems like he's kind of dejected about the offers that he's been getting.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Nick, what gets me excited is he's going to use that second overall pick. That's what I was looking for. And let's see what he does. Let's see what Tom Fitzgerald in the next 2 weeks, what he does. And, well, we've got a lot of guests tonight, Nick.
We do.
We definitely got a lot of guests tonight. And you know what? It's going to be a good night. And we're going to learn about a lot of the players coming up in tomorrow's draft. Montreal's buzzing. And you know what? It has a different feel. It has a different feel because it's not done virtually like it has the last couple of years. And that you can feel the energy even though we're not in Montreal. And on top of everything else, Nick, the GMs can kind of have private 5-minute conversations and maybe they can make a deal down the line.
Yeah. Are they allowed
instead
to
of a Zoom call?
Allowed to get together? I don't know what the COVID protocols are.
You know what? I don't know. I just based on pictures. Seems like everyone's all holly jolly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Super spreader event going on. Hey, we don't. Here's the thing: is that we did learn a lot. We learned so much today, but I think that Devils fans just in general are just excited for it to be over, which is kind of sad. I hate to say it, Sam, but it seems like a lot of the fan base is just like, we're so sick of the terrible Montreal Canadiens trade proposals. We're so sick of the terrible Vancouver Canucks trade proposals. We're so sick of just everybody treating our assets like they were worth nothing. And I kind of get it. It's just sad, though. Like, this should be an exciting time. We should be excited about having the second overall pick. We should be excited about all that. But, yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited, Nick, and I'll tell you, all the rumors that we've listened to the past 2 weeks, the podcasts that I've been listening to, the blogs that I've been reading, the tweets from credible people, the tweets from non-credible people. It is driving me insane. The whole DeBrincat, JT Miller, even Jesper Bratt as well. But right now I feel better after listening to the horse's mouth, Tom Fitzgerald, what he's done. Also, you know what else we learned? Assistant coaches. They haven't hired anybody yet. They've interviewed a lot of people. They're still trying to figure it out.
Not even close. Weird.
Yeah. Although the Devils are very strategic, I don't know what this means, but they're very, very strategic with the announcements and all that kind of stuff that, I don't know. I don't know. What are you waiting for? So, But, folks, I really think that the Devils are going to be patient. They're going to be actively listening, but they're not going to overdo it and be super duper aggressive with trying to find the right player, goalie, to bring to the team. This simply not. I don't think they're going to force it, but they're going to be active. And I think what we're going to find out is I don't think they're even going to get a goaltender in the end. I just don't, because I just don't see anything there.
They're going to get a goaltender.
Well, a goaltender, but not the goaltender.
No, I think they're going to get a 1B. And I think that's what they see in Jack Campbell and Villano. And they kind of are in a weird spot because they still got Jonathan Bernier here. It doesn't sound like they're going to buy him out. Doesn't sound like they're going to do anything with him. I think, Sam, you know what I think?
What?
I think they're eventually going to have $3+ million goalies on the roster. It's going to be unprecedented. It's never really. I don't think has it ever happened before? I don't know. Maybe it has. Maybe it hasn't. But the Devils are going to have $3+ million goalies on the roster. And when Bernier is ready to come back, which I would say is probably not until December at the earliest, but could be as late as February, I would say, with how they're going to slow play his hip. Bernier said he was going to be ready opening night, and that was never going to be the case. I mean, I appreciate his push to try to get back on the roster, but that's a hip injury. That's a hip surgery. I don't want you forcing it. I want you to get healthy. And honestly, with how bad the goalie situation is, how bad of a situation could it be? Just,
we got a lot of people online. I'm just looking right now. YouTube Live, hello. I see all the comments. We'll get to that. Twitter Live, pretty good numbers. Facebook Live, we've got a lot of people on. And we should probably get our next guest. So, yeah. Why don't you talk to social media?
There's a lot to say. Michael Hayes says Blackwood may surprise, but he's on the last hurrah with Devils. I mean, that's absolutely true. I also think this is the last year of his contract, I believe. I could double check that. But it sounded like the Devils were interested in giving Blackwood another shot. It sounded like they're not looking to just jettison him. Yeah, this is the last year on his contract. So Blackwood's he's making $2.8 million. Sorry, I thought he was making over 3 for some reason. I thought he was making 3.2, but he's making $2.8 million this year. I think bringing a guy in to take some of the load off of Blackwood and then showing that you're willing to say, we believe in you to be the guy, could build his confidence. But then you're in trouble because then you got to pay him again. And what are you going to do with Mackenzie Blackwood, who is going to have arbitration rights if he has a phenomenal season? What if he pulls out a .924 save percentage? I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have because we haven't had a good goalie like that in, gosh, I don't even know how long, years and years and years. But the Devils are in trouble if it happens next offseason. Oh, I mean, I guess they're not really in trouble. They have next offseason, it's ridiculous how much they have. $56 million in cap space next season. $56 million in cap space in the 2023 offseason. So I guess we shouldn't really worry about them having to pay anybody next offseason, right? Like that's an insane amount of money that they have to spend. That's why I'm not worried about them signing Johnny Gaudreau. I'm not worried about them trading for Matthew Tkachuk and the implications of that contract. I'm not worried about signing Philip Forsberg. They're going to be able to figure out any contract, and it's going to be phenomenal. Sam, you're back.
I'm back. Before we get our next guest, just want to remind everybody that we will be at Pasta Grill by Enzo's tomorrow for our live draft party, live podcast as the NHL draft is happening. come find us at Pasta Grill by Enzo's off of Route 57 in Hackettstown, New Jersey. Our next guest, he is the NHL editor at The Score. You can find him on Twitter at Josh Wegman _. Josh, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Excited for the draft?
Oh, we're so excited, Josh. And Josh, you are a mercenary coming on. Josh is somebody I had to call last minute, a friend of the podcast, because we had some scheduling issues, and we appreciate Josh. We appreciate you coming on last minute. Thank you so much for making some time for us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to come on anytime.
So I was reading your mock draft today. You went with the chalk at the top. You went Shane Wright, and then you went Yaroslav Slavkovsky. But there were some rumors today that the Devils were really into Logan Cooley. So I kind of want you to kind of go through the discourse between those two. What made you pick Slavkovsky? Was that somebody that you would pick if you were the Devils? Or did you pick him because that's who you think the Devils are going to pick?
So we did this mock based on who we think a team would pick. And I think they would pick Slavkovsky, assuming Wright goes 1. A lot of draft analysts have him as the top player on their board. I know Chiasson's Bob McKenzie does, and the Athletics' Corey Pronman has Slavkovsky number 1. So I can't really see him getting past 2. But also, if I were the Devils in that situation, I would also take Slavkovsky number 2. I just think not only is he the consensus best player available, but I think he would really fit in well with what the Devils currently have. You know, you look at Hughes as such a dynamic, albeit small player, and Keisher's really solid down the middle, but getting a big, skilled winger like Slavkovsky, I think would just be the ultimate complement to what they already have. You know, he's highly skilled. He can skate for a big guy. I think he's listed at 6'3" or 6'4". I've heard some comparisons to Rick Nash in terms of just a player comp, not necessarily exactly the player he'll be. I see a little bit of Mikko Rantanen in him, so I think that type of player would just mesh so well with alongside Hughes or Hischier, who aren't the biggest centers in the world.
Oh, you're making me excited, Josh. You're getting me. Oh man, I'm pumped. I am pumped, honestly. And here's the thing: there are 5 players in this draft that I'm through the roof excited about, and I'm going to be just floored with anyone. I was actually kind of low on Logan Cooley. I didn't want them to take him, but I guess I'm kind of talking myself into it just in case it happens. Sam's excited. Sam's excited about Cooley. What are your thoughts on Cooley? Do you like Cooley at all as a prospect?
I do. He looks really good from all accounts. I mean, that U.S. national team development program that he was on was pretty loaded, but he was arguably the best player on it. He's just got amazing hands. He's a dynamite skater. I've heard some analysts say that he has the most upside of anyone, which I guess could go either way. But yeah, he's a very exciting prospect. But again, just with what the Devils have in place, they're kind of small up front right now with their core. And, you know, there's all this talk of maybe they'll go after Johnny Gaudreau or maybe they'll go after Alex DeBrincat. So that would be another smallish forward. So I don't necessarily see them going for another small forward with this pick, especially when, by all accounts, Slavkovsky is the consensus better player and happens to be 6'3", 6'4".
That definitely helps. That size helps. And speaking of size, let's talk about the defenseman. So I did a big profile on David Jiricek and Simon Nemec, and man, I changed my mind. I was all in. I actually was going to – my mock draft came out today, and I also had the Devils taking Slavkovsky. I was all in on them taking Nemec before I did a deep dive comparison between Nemec and Jiricek, and actually started leaning towards Jiricek because of the size, because of his ability, because of his upside, and what he would add to this Devils lineup. What are your thoughts between the two defensemen? Sam, do we lose Josh there?
I guess we lost him. Let me give him a call back. Sorry,
call
folks.
Him back.
Yeah, let me call him back.
We'll call him back.
Why don't you go fly solo for a while?
Well, I'll fly solo. You call Josh back, and we got to know about these defensemen. I did. I fell in love with David Jurisic when I did my comparison side by side, and it changed my pick at number 2 overall. It didn't change my pick to Jurisic, but I would actually be excited if they took Jurisic. I would be. You know what? I wouldn't hate Nemec either. It's not that I fell out of love with Nemec. It's just that I just think that Jurisic is going to be the better player. If you looked at this draft, and I see a lot of people kind of bringing up the 2017 draft, just be like, oh, it just has that kind of feel as the 2017 draft, that the number 1 overall pick is not going to be the best player. And I get it, because there's just the consensus is just not there. But I do kind of feel like these defensemen, one of them could just come out of nowhere and become the best player in this draft by a long shot. Kind of like what Cale Makar has turned into from the 2017 draft. And that's scary because it sounds like the Devils are going to or it could look past it. But, Sam, we got Josh back?
Yeah, we got Josh back. You know, technical difficulties, international calling. It happens, folks. It happens.
We are calling 4 different countries tonight. So that is an interesting situation. But, Josh, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Might just be the service on my end, but hopefully it holds through this time.
We're all good. So I was asking between the differences between Simon Nemec and David Jurisic, and a lot of people have brought up 2017 that you could see one of these players become by far the best player in the draft. What are you seeing between these two players?
I think the comparison to 2017 is there's always a chance, like it's possible Jurisic or Nemec or both of them become the 2 best players in the draft. But the one thing I would err on the side of caution with is I don't think either one are the elite skaters that Heiskanen and Makar are. I feel Makar, if he was playing in any other league other than the AJHL, he probably would have went first overall, but that was the knock on him, that he wasn't playing major junior or one of these elite programs or anything. So I don't necessarily think either player will be a Heiskanen or Makar, but they could end up the best player in the draft. It's always possible. Nemec is just so smart. He's so creative, so skilled, but he's not that elite skater like a Makar or a Heiskanen is, in my opinion. So that's kind of why I lean towards Jurisic. I like them both a lot, but I would rank him just slightly higher based on the fact that he's 6'3" and he still gets around well for his size, and he has a great shot. He's really poised with the puck, makes a great first pass. So I think they're both going to end up being really good players, but yeah, I don't think they'll be a Heiskanen or Makar.
So let's look at the first round as a whole, because our night's going to end pretty early, but we're still going to watch the draft. After the second overall pick, we're going to watch for the drama. We're going to watch for the craziness that happens. Do you see something crazy happen? Do you see a player who could go a lot higher than we're expecting them to go?
Well, in our mock draft with my colleague Nick Ferris that we put together, we had Rucker McGrody going 7th overall. Most mocks have him going somewhere in the 10, 15, 20 range. So I guess on our end, that would be considered a reach, but he's just a really competitive, complete player. There's a few concerns about his skating, but if he can shore that up, he could be really special. And our rationale was that Ottawa has reached on those type of players before. So if they trust in their formula, that it could happen again. But there's a few other players I think that could end up going higher than maybe some expect.
Sorry, Nick, we lost him. Technology. You know what? This is what's happening in Canada, all right? I'm going to tell you how it works in Canada. There's probably so many people in Montreal, and everybody's calling at the draft, and Bell, Rogers. They're probably all tied up. Let me see if we have them back on. Josh, are you there?
Can you guys?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Josh.
Yep.
Yep. We got everything
Okay,
up until we got most of what you said.
Okay, so I don't know exactly how far again, but I was talking about how the same types of players seemingly go higher in draft every year, and to me that's always centers and big defensemen who can skate. So a few players in this draft that I think will go maybe higher than expected is Leon Bichelle. He's a Swiss defenseman. He's 6'5" and gets around the ice really well. Most people have him in the late teens, early 20s, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's higher than that. And another defenseman is Owen Pickering, same style of player. He grew kind of late. He's 6'4", 6'5", but can really skate for his size. There's just a lot of upside there, even if it takes him a few years. So, and then the two centers I had in mind were Philip Bystedt and Nathan Gauthier. There's two big centers. You always see those guys, those types of players go earlier than maybe some expect, just because teams really value the size and the skating that if you can get at those positions, it becomes very valuable. And part of it, too, is the recent stuff that's going on in Russia with, I don't know if you guys heard about Ivan Fedotov, the Flyers prospect, and he has to go do some military service now. So that could maybe scare teams off taking some of the Russians. So you could see other players maybe moving up the boards.
Yeah, that the Russian stuff is scary. The Devils do have a couple Russian prospects. I know that Igor Sharangovich is actually in New Jersey, according to Tom Fitzgerald. So that's, the one person you were kind of a little worried about. Speaking of the Tom Fitzgerald press conference, he kind of touched on a lot of things today, and he addressed a lot of the smoke that's out there. There was smoke around Jesper Bratt, smoke around the second overall pick. He basically put water on a lot of it, saying that he hasn't really gotten significant trade proposals for anything and that Jesper Bratt's not available. But there's a lot of smoke, Josh. Everybody's reporting on the New Jersey Devils and their possible movement. Do you think they're going to make a significant move this offseason, whether it's a big trade, Johnny Gaudreau signing, Philip Forsberg? Do you see the New Jersey Devils adding a superstar this year?
I think Fitzgerald's going to do everything in his power to make it happen anyway. I mean, they're just in that perfect spot where they have a lot of cap space. They don't have any bad contracts on the books. And they're kind of in that window where one more piece or maybe two more pieces could really put them over the top and become a really solid playoff team. And once you're in that playoff team, once you're a playoff team with all these young players they have, you get a couple guys have breakout seasons, and next thing you know, they're a really dangerous club. So, yeah, I can really see them as a fit for Gaudreau, just given the cap space, and I know he's from around that area, so that would make a lot of sense. It's not looking too optimistic that he's returning to Calgary. I mean, obviously a deal could kind of come together at any time. It seems like they've made their offer and just kind of waiting on his response, but to me, that would be the logical landing spot for Gaudreau. And then I know the Devils are trying to upgrade the crease. There's been some rumors that they're in on Jack Campbell, because I know Jonathan Bernier's injury situation isn't entirely promising, and Mackenzie Blackwood is coming off a couple rough years, so I think they're going to definitely use their cap space to try and upgrade in goal. So to me, yeah, they're one of the most exciting teams to watch this offseason, just given their cap space. They have an ownership that's clearly willing to spend after the Dougie Hamilton signing last offseason. So the Devils can make a real splash here and then look out for next season.
Well, Josh, I want to thank you for sticking with us, sticking through a couple of the difficulties here with the service. We blame too many Canadiens just talking on the phones. There's too many rumor mongers at the draft using up all the cell signal up there. But Josh, why don't you let everybody know where they can find your stuff? Tell them about the mock draft that's out, where they can find everything of your work.
Yeah, you can just download the Score app or go on the Score website if you're on a computer. We have a mock draft up right now, myself and a colleague of mine, Nick Barris, and you can also follow me on Twitter at @JoshWegman_ to find out all my work, because I'll usually tweet it out there.
Great. Well,
thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Really appreciate you coming on. Oh, Sam, you can finish it.
Thank you, Josh, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Take care, guys, and enjoy the draft.
Thank you. That is Josh Wegman of The Score. Download the app. Download the app.
We love the app.
It's a great app. I'm telling you, I remember when Justin Bourne worked at The Score. That's where great broadcasters and people in the hockey media, that's where they start. And I see them move up at the rankings and all that. If you haven't downloaded the Score app yet, download it. It's a good app. All right, so moving on, in a couple minutes, we're going to have one of my favorite guests coming on, giving me ideas of what to write about.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a pretty good article, actually.
It was a pretty good piece, and it did well. It drove a lot of conversation, drove a lot of content. Why don't you talk about it real quick, Sam? We got a few minutes before Jack comes on. Why don't you talk about that piece? You talked about what the Devils would do if they did nothing. And
nothing.
Kind of talk about your thought process.
Just status quo. Just nothing. Just fulfill your obligations. Go to the draft. Free agency, tender offers because you have to with your restricted free agents, which Tom Fitzgerald did say.
Yeah, that was the first step. He started the first step today.
Yeah, because the Devils are very smart. Okay, they read the social media channels. They're very strategic. They're seeing what the messages are going to the fans, and they cleared the air today. It was very refreshing. It wasn't like I wasn't left hanging like, oh my goodness, did you talk to Jesper Bratt and it'd be like Lou Lamoriello, not obligated to talk about, any kind of conversations between player and management. Next.
I'll say this. Do you know what, and I just thought of this, do you know what I think spurns that?
What's that?
I think Tom Fitzgerald's a little. I mean, and this kind of came out obvious, but I think he's a little sick of all the rumors about Jesper Bratt. I think he thinks another team is putting that out there, and I don't think he's 100% sure whether the Bratt camp isn't. I don't want to say that they're encouraging it, but it's almost like they're not discouraging it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. If Bratt's agent came out and said we're only negotiating with the Devils, we only want to be with the Devils, none of Frank Saravalli, Kevin Weeks would never have anything to go off of.
Yeah.
But they haven't, clearly. So I think Fitzgerald was like, you have an offer, and they made it clear, Sam, that the Bratt camp hasn't said no to the offer. They haven't said the offer is not good enough. They're just waiting on a response. Which is weird because, and we also have.
They're making him sweat. The Bratt camp. They're making us sweat.
But Bratt's in New Jersey. He's not back in Sweden. I believe somebody said that his girlfriend lives here, so there's that. But it's an interesting situation. If the Devils did nothing, I think the fan base would be off its rocker. At least in net, you at least have to get a goalie. I think. Yeah. But. And you said in the article, and we say this all the time, you got to read the article because the headline is always for a purpose, but the article
I got some of the comments. It's like, did you read? Did you actually read it? Yeah, I even had a full disclosure. Full disclosure.
You don't want them to do nothing. But in this hypothetical world, let's talk about it. It's like, why would you say that? Why would you do that?
I almost have to put.
Shut up.
I almost have to put the full disclosure in the headline.
Right?
Parentheses. Sam does not want this. But yeah, we should get Jack Dawkins up soon. But just before I go, and you talk to social media again, which YouTube Live is just going crazy again, that it is scary what's happening with the world, what's happening in the world, especially in Russia. Muhammadulin, again, you worry what may happen. I'm not speculating, but it's just I just don't want to get blindsided because this is a very, very serious issue.
Is he here?
I believe he's in Utica, but I don't know. I really don't
Dan
know.
Rice of pucksandpitchforks.com asked Tom Fitzgerald when the prospect camp starts, and it starts next week.
Mhm.
So I would assume he's here, but
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I could very much be wrong, but I would assume that he should be here. If he's not, and if he's not here, that's when you worry. The player you worry about is Arseny Gritsik, because he's there. He's in Russia. He's signed for another year for a Russian team. He said he was going to be in Russia next year. I don't know if the situation at hand is going to change that, but you're dealing with a situation that's kind of beyond our gourd. There's a lot of things happening in hockey that are a little beyond what we're talking about, between the Hockey Canada settlement and the Russian players situation. This is just not what a lot of us signed up for to talk about, but it's the situation at hand. And again, Gritsik is a player that I think is NHL ready in one more year. And that's kind of scary, right? Because what's going to happen in a year? I mean, you would expect this whole Ukraine thing. I mean, the what's happening there is scary and sad and just devastating. And we're having, a literal hero coming on in Jack Dawkins, somebody who's spent his time and money to go over to help the people of Ukraine. So it's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation with him, but it is what it is. Or that's not true. I can't say that. That's not fair. It's not is what it is. It's sad and scary. Our hearts go out to all the Russian players who want to come to North America to have their dream of playing the NHL fulfilled. And before I say anything stupid, because I almost just did it, I'm going to leave it at that. But we're talking to Jack Dawkins. He has a lot of play on Russian prospects, and he's got a lot to say about this draft. He's been telling me a lot about how these Russian prospects are going to fall, and I think they might fall even more now because of the situation at hand. So we'll ask him about that. We're going to ask him about what he thinks about, some of these terrible trade proposals. And a lot of this, I sent a lot of these people a rundown before the Tom Fitzgerald press conference today. So a lot of this could change, but I definitely think that the Devils are in a position where it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fluid. Man, it's the Russia thing just kind of takes the air out of the room. But Sam's back, thank goodness. I can't hear you, Sam.
Yeah, sorry. It's just been a technical difficulty nightmare. And if you want to see us crash and burn, you can find us tomorrow at Pasta Grill by Enzo's in beautiful Hackettstown, New Jersey. I'm plugging all night. 1916 Route 57 for our live podcast throughout the draft, live NHL draft viewing party. We got music, all that jazz. All right, I'm done. But we have our next guest. I like this guest because he, on Twitter, you can find him on Twitter, at JD Says Too Much, spoke up and gave me the greatest article idea to write about the NHL draft and free agency is what if the Devils did absolutely nothing? And I can't thank him enough. His name is Jack Dawkins of Recruit Scouting. Jack, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, actually.
Well, that press conference made me feel better, yeah. Jack, how about you?
Yeah, first off, it's, shout out to Ryan for his first press conference. He did a great job as a beat reporter. I think everybody could agree with that. He hit some really nice pointed questions, and I was kind of surprised that Fitz didn't shut him down. Fitz gave him real answers for the most part. To me, that is my most impressive takeaway from that press conference is there's somebody in the room now who can ask those questions and get answers to them.
Yeah, and we at Pucks and Pitchforks have Dan Rice in the room, and I don't want to take away from him. Ryan went first, but I got to give Ryan credit. He asked 7 or 8 questions, and they all hit the nails on the head. So, for his first press conference, for him to go second, I do have to give props to him. He was a guest of our podcast. We really enjoyed having him on. He's a very smart guy. He's really taken this fan base by storm. and he's going to go out there and he's a bulldog, and we like bulldogs in here. But I do want to kind of jump into what we learned. There's been so many terrible trade proposals. I literally just saw one, Jack, where somebody said, "Do you think the Devils will give second overall Jesper Bratt and a defensive prospect for JT Miller?" Like, I'm so sick of these and so happy it's almost over. But are you happy you learned? Yeah, I mean, like, shoot me in the head. What the hell? I wish I was that
It's just
dumb.
hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me that people are like, yes, we are going to get more for 1 year of JT Miller than Buffalo got for Jack Eichel. What?
I'm
No.
floored. I'm floored.
So,
But anyway, so let's just go over it. Have you seen any trades for the second overall pick, for Jesper Bratt, for anything significant from us that you think are worthwhile? Is there anything out there that's even worth it?
if I got a young winger in the similar age gap to my core guys, and I knew this was a threat to be a point per game player every year, if I could get that kind of guy, like a DeBrincat, like a Timo Meier, like a Matthew Tkachuk, if I could get a guy that I know for sure is going to be a point per game player for a few years with my core, I have to trade the pick. Because regardless of who you pick second overall, if Shane Wright falls to you, if you get Slafkovsky, if you go for Logan Cooley, if any one of those three players, you're hoping they turn into that kind of player. So if you can just get that kind of player and remove the uncertainty quotient, I think you have to. But aside from an Alex DeBrincat or a Timo Meier or, a William Nylander, because I've seen the Leafs names are always thrown around. Aside from a player like that, you can't move on from two because of the three offensive talents I named. I mean, all three of those guys are likely top six players in this league. They're likely very good ones. So I can't. 1 year of JT Miller's not doing it for me.
So I was talking earlier with Josh Wegman of The Score, and I kind of said to him, there's 5 players in this draft that I'd be floored happy with to get. I was totally out on Logan Cooley for a while, but a lot of people who I trust are totally in on him. So I'm kind of turned around on him.
I'm one of them.
You are one of them, and I trust everything. And Sam is all in. He wants Logan Cooley over Shane Wright. Sam is number one guy he wants is Logan Cooley. So
you betcha.
Is there anyone?
So you're going to get Gav here a little later, but I'm pretty sure Cooley finished number one in Recruit Scouty's ranking. I know he was number one in my ranking. I think Cooley's the best player in the draft. I don't even think, and I don't actually think it's that close either. I think Cooley's the best player in the draft by a bit of a margin.
I'm clapping. I've been saying this for the last 2 months. I've been saying this for the last 2 months.
Okay. I'm not there with you.
You watch the footage of what he did in the U.S. National Team Development Program, and you're like, I remember Jack Hughes doing that. And you watch more footage, and you're like, he looks a lot like Jack Hughes. He looks a lot like maybe an 80 or 90% of a Jack Hughes. And if I can get an 80% of a Jack Hughes, I'm picking it.
Okay. Hey, listen, but the question here that I'm going to ask is there anyone of those 5? Jurisic, Nemec, obviously not Cooley, but Wright and Slafkovsky. If the Devils go up there and name one of those people, is there anyone who's going to make you upset?
Of those 5, I actually like Slafkovsky the least. And that's a rough statement because I back when I was with Hockey Writers, I covered his first World Juniors because I was given Slovakia. So I've been watching Slafkovsky for a few years now, and that's a good hockey player. But I like him the least out of those 5. I mean, we have just spent, aside from the stupid trades, we have the stupid the Devils should have picked Makar instead of Hischier argument going on. It's like you're juxtaposing that argument against two of the most interesting right-handed defenseman prospects that we've seen in the same draft for a while. The last couple of years, the defensive battle is like, oh, do you take this right-hander or this left-hander? Like the Devils last year, the choice was between Luke Hughes and Brandt Clark. So I think you look at like, do I get Nemec or Jiricek? Even though I want Logan Cooley, I think Nemec is the correct pick.
Okay. So you like I'm assuming you like the floor of Nemec then, because I know Jiricek is more he's more not the finished product. I don't know why I can't do English right now, but
the thing about Jiricek is if you asked me this question a year ago, I was out on him. His defensive play was so in the viewings that I had of him early in the season, his defensive play was so bad I was completely out on him. Like, I'm done. I'm not watching this prospect anymore. And then right around World Juniors, I watched him again and I was like, that's not the same player. That's not the same. And he improved his defensive game so much in the course of a year that it kind of leaves you wondering how much more can it improve? How much better can he get? What is Jiricek's, or what is his ceiling? Are we looking at the next Erik Karlsson here? When, prime before he messed his leg up, Erik Karlsson. Is that what we're looking at when we look at David Jiricek? He's got beautiful size. He's right-handed. He can rush the puck up. He's got a great shot. Like everything when you're looking for a defenseman, that he just screams it. But then you have Simon Nemec, who has been a top 5 player in this draft since he was 16. And he didn't disappoint at World Juniors both years. He didn't disappoint. And then in the men's league this year, he looked better in the men's league this year than Brandt Clark looked in his draft year playing in the same men's league.
Oh, sorry, my computer decided to go away. But yeah, let's go. The Devils have never taken a second-round pick under Tom Fitzgerald. The first one was gone, I believe, in the Nikita Gusev trade. I don't remember why last year's was gone, or maybe one was gone in the PK Subban trade, another one was gone in the Gusev trade. Either way, we've seen the Devils reach with their. What were you saying, Jack?
No, I think they were both the Gusev trade. Wasn't that 2 seconds?
And it was a second and a third. I think that they gave away that year's third because they gave away the second in the Subban trade. So I think they were both. Either way, whatever the case may be, they get to pick in the second round. They don't have to take a Shakir Mukhamadullin or a Chase Stillman in the first round because they have a second round pick this year. Who are some of the players that you're hoping fall? First, I'll tell you, in my mock draft, if you haven't read it yet today, Jack, I took Yanni Neiman, and I really, really like the pick. But who are some of the players that you really liked in the second round?
That wouldn't be a bad pick if he fell. I'm still a really, really big fan of the potential upside of Elias Salomonsson. He has tumbled down people's draft rankings, and I don't necessarily think it's because he's been bad. I just think other people have been better recently, causing people to raise them up their rankings where he just kind of gets past. But I mean, he's a 6'1" right-handed defenseman from Sweden with an offensive upside skill set. We need that. If you don't take Jiricek or Nemec and you go for the forward, the best you can do is take the best right-handed defender available with that second round pick. That's probably going to be, if Salomonsson slides, Seamus Casey could slide, Ty Nelson could slide, Tristan Lunow. These are all guys who could slide. Of those ones, I think Salomonsson projects the best. Leon Bichel, Swiss kid playing in the SHL. He was really impressive to me. If any of the top 3 Russian forwards slide out of the first round, absolutely scoop them in the second round. That would be Yurov, Miroshnichenko, and Perevalov, and Trikazov also. If any of those 4 slide into the second, grab them.
Real quick, you just brought up right-handed defenseman, and my third-round pick is a right-handed defenseman that you haven't mentioned, and that's Christian Kyrou. I might be saying his name wrong, but of the Erie Otters, do you have any thoughts on him?
The kid finds ways to put points on the board.
I don't hate that.
Especially for a third-round pick. I think he's a good swing in the third round. That might be a little high to swing on him, but somebody's gonna watch footage of his point production and try to figure out how to project it to the NHL. And they may look like a genius if they pull it off, but there's some holes in his game. But again, we're talking a third round pick, not a first round pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
also
go ahead.
The ultimate answer for the second round pick is they have to. If Jack Hughes is on the board in the second round, you have to take him.
Oh, okay. I've seen a lot of mocks where he's there.
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's a very, very good hockey player. And of course, you also have, he has the name, so you can have Jack Hughes and Jack Hughes on the same team. They give him number 89, it would drive everybody crazy.
In trade negotiations, you can bait and switch and not trade the real Jack Hughes.
It's like you got 6 first-round picks for Northeastern's Jack Hughes. Real quick before we let you go, Jack, because we're coming to the end. There's a lot of later-round players that can do a lot of great things, and COVID kind of threw off scouting a lot, so it's just volatile after the second round. Is there a later round pick that you've fallen in love with?
I got 3 for you on that. I'm a big Jordan Dumais fan. Not everybody is. I think he projects to possibly be the next Brendan Gallagher. The kid has a nose for getting in tight to the net and playing the puck within that 8-foot range right in front of the goalie. And I think that's a really projectable skill. People complain about his skating. They complain about his periphery play sometimes and his engagement. No, the kid gets to the net and puts pucks in the net. And I like that. There's a BCHL kid named Josh Nadeau who is small, but I have found him really impressive in my viewings. He's only 5'7", but he's got that knowledge of when he needs to move to avoid hits. And he's very, very good, very cagey in puck battles, very good along the boards, impressive along the boards for his size. He probably doesn't go before the 5th round if anybody's got their eyes on him. And then there's a U.S. high school kid named Zam Plant, which is possibly one of the cooler names in the draft. But
Love that guy.
he's going to go. He should go in the 2nd or 3rd round, I think. There's a BCHL defenseman named Tyson Jugnoff, if I'm butchering that name, but he's really good too. Sometimes these leagues like BCHL and the AJHL, they kind of, like, scouts don't get to them, so these guys don't get on people's boards where they should.
Jack Dawkins, Recruit Scouting. So excited to have you on tonight, have you on again. I'm sure we're going to have you on soon. One of the best friends of the podcast. What are you doing to the draft? Where can people get your thoughts?
So I actually don't know what I'm doing. I might go to the party in Asbury Park because I'm only 30 minutes from Asbury Park. So I might go to the Stone Pony. Like, I go hang out there sometimes. I might go to the draft party, or I don't know, see which podcast is doing a live stream and wants me to call in. That's it depends. It depends who gets in touch with me and what's going on. So we'll see.
Listen,
I'll definitely be live tweeting
Sam,
it though.
why don't you, Sam, tell him what you're doing.
Yeah, well, we're going to be at Pasta Grill by Enzo's in beautiful Hackettstown, New Jersey on 1916 Route 57, Jack. And we may have to get in touch with you after the Devils hopefully draft Logan Cooley.
I will be happy if they draft him because he's a good pick. Also, Hackettstown is so far.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. I'll get a hold of you. Yeah. It's the
I live down by the Pines, so.
Oof. Oh, well, to be fair, we will have to get in touch because I'm moving by you, but we'll talk about that later, Jack. But thanks so much for coming on. We're excited to see your thoughts. If you don't get in touch with them on the podcast, at least check them out at JD Says Too Much on Twitter. Jack, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Be nice to Gavin for me.
We'll do. We'll do. We'll say a nice words that you deserve a raise. All right, that is Jack Dawkins, Recruit Scouting. You can find him on Twitter at JD Says Too Much. He's also one of the best friends of this fine podcast. Stay the fan address and Let's Go Devils podcast. And he gives me great content, great ideas to write about when I have writer's block. That's all I do right now, Nick. It's when I have writer's block. You can find me on Twitter at PrimetimeSamWoo. I get all these great ideas, and suddenly I'm a writing machine.
Yeah. You only need the ideas. Once you get the ideas, you can write for, and I told you, I was like, Sam, you just got to talk to me because I literally have a living document that has probably 60 different ideas on at any time. I have 10 different what if articles to write in August, just waiting to be written for when I'm bored and nothing's going on in the off season to bang out some what ifs. I love a what if. I love a good what if. So if you ever need a good what if, I love a good what if. If you ever need a good what if, I got it. I got it hanging for you. Sam, this one's a little weird. This next cast is a little weird because we got to wait for them to call us.
Oh, well, actually, you can't see this next guest because he's already in the green room. He's already in the green room.
Look at that.
He's already in the green room. He is listening in. We didn't do a tech check before he came on, but that's okay because he's a very smart guy. And, and hopefully he'll be watching, our live draft party at Enzo's tomorrow. Anyway, our next guest, live via video, his name is Sebastian High. He's a scout and a Canadiens writer. You can find him on Twitter at @High_Sebastian. Sebastian, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm doing great. It's been an active evening. I finished off another podcast appearance about 5 minutes ago, so it's been pretty busy.
Yeah, where are you at right now?
Okay, so I'm from Montreal, studying in Ottawa, but currently traveling in Europe. So it's currently 2 a.m. here, but it's fine. It's all good.
Wow.
It's party time. You're going to be up late for the draft anyway. We're setting it up. We're helping you get there.
Exactly. I have to sleep in tomorrow anyway, so I could have a chance of staying awake for the entire draft. So this is all totally fine.
That's great. So you write a little bit for our Montreal Canadiens affiliate, Habs Eye on the Prize. So we want to bring you on to kind of talk about what you think the Habs thought process is on. The Devils beat writers asked Tom Fitzgerald today, do you have any idea what Montreal is going to do with the first overall pick? And he said no. I think that's kind of the consensus, is that Montreal is keeping it very close to the vest. But what do you think they're going to do? Do you think it's going to be Shane Wright after all this? Or do you think Slafkovsky is a legit possibility? Or do you think Cooley's a legit possibility?
I think the Habs have done a tremendous job at hiding their hand from everyone, which gives them a lot more trade leverage, right? So if a team like New Jersey or Arizona really wants Cooley or Slafkovsky or even Wright at number one, and they're not sure what the Habs are going to do, they might trade up, right? There is that possibility. And I think that is also the main reason that the Habs have been so secretive about all this and are constantly trying to tell the media, like, it's between these three guys, I don't know who it is yet, and it gives them that trade leverage. So no, I don't know what they're gonna do, but I do think that Wright is the most likely option, and I think he's the correct choice at number 1 as well. He might not end up as the best player in this draft class, but he has the highest floor in the entire class in terms of prospects, and the best combination of upside and floor in the class. I think you're getting an easy bet for a second line centerman there with significant upside as a first line centerman. So I think you can't really pass that up. And the Habs don't exactly have the center depth of the Devils. So that is something that the Habs really should pick up on.
So let me ask you, where do you think the discourses come from? You know, Shane Wright's been the number 1 guy the entire time. He didn't have a bad season. Why do you think all of a sudden, you know, people are kind of getting off this? I guess we see this every year, right? We saw it with Kakko and Hughes. We saw it, you know, it changed the narrative in 2017 with Nolan Patrick. Is this just a board media narrative where we have to have at least some kind of discourse at number 1 overall, or do you think there's something legitimate here at all?
There is definitely that there for a constant debate between two players at number 1. We see it every single year, but this year's different. This is a year where I think there's a legitimate chance that Wright does not go at number 1. And I think the main reason for that is his lack of pace and dynamism, which is something that you almost never see with forwards who go first overall. Usually they are among the most dynamic players in the draft class, flashing their skill, knowing how to use it consistently and just dominate their leagues, and like looking like they're dominating, not just doing it quietly as Shane Wright does. And it also often plays at a lower pace. He's very reminiscent of Nick Suzuki in that sense. He likes to hang back, watch the play, and pounce when he sees an opening because he's tremendously intelligent, and that's how he plays an effective game. But it also means that, no, he's not going to be McDavid. He's not going to be on the highlight reel every single week or every single month because it's not his style. Whereas Logan Cooley and Slafkovsky both have the upside of being consistently on highlight reels. So I think that's where that discourse comes from, and in wanting, I guess, not necessarily just swinging on upside, but swinging on an exciting player, because Shane Wright is not the exciting pick here. He, I think, is the best pick, but he's just such a quiet, slow burn type of player that you need to watch a lot of to really appreciate fully. And he's just tremendously intelligent, one of the best playmakers in the class, probably has the best vision in the entire class, tremendous shot. And if he can learn to use his tools more often, then we'll see the upside of that dynamic ability. But for the time being, he just isn't that dynamic. And I think that's the big reason that that scouts and the public in general are looking at other options at number 1.
So, from a Devils perspective, and from, you know, maybe from a Canadiens perspective, let's say they did take Slafkovsky for whatever reason. You've done a lot of research on Shane Wright. Do you think he's somebody that can move around the lineup? Do you think he could play right wing, left wing? Do you think he's somebody, or do you think he's somebody that has to play center? Kind of like, because when I look at like somebody like Nico Hischier, I don't think Nico Hischier really has a skill set to move. You know, I don't think he play left wing or right wing. I think Suzuki's kind of in a similar mold, but I don't think Suzuki can play left wing or right wing. I think he's right where he needs to be. Do you see Shane Wright as that? He's kind of built like that, right? Where he's got the two-way game. He kind of is, he's defensively responsible. He's looking to make everybody around him better. But do you think he can adjust his game, or do you think he's kind of stuck in that mold?
I think Shane Wright would be a very good second-line right winger, but he loses his real effective ability if you move him away from center. He needs... he wants to consistently be the third player to enter the offensive zone, which is often what the center does. He wants to connect play in transition. If he's a winger, he's going to be one of the forecheckers. And if he's forechecking, he's the one in it when he's actually at his best, when he's observing and waiting for the right moment to strike. So I think you lose a lot of the value with Wright if you move him to the wing. At the same time, if you if you think that Wright is by far the best player available to you, you pick him no matter what, and figure out how he slots into your lineup later, right? Because if like you can just try out Hughes and Hischier on the wing and Wright as well, and just see what sticks, right? Or you have 3 lines that each have a first-line centerman on them, and you have the biggest luxury in the entire league. So I think you can do that. Logan Cooley, I think, would be a very effective winger, on the other hand. So he might be a more versatile pick in that sense for the unique scenario of being able to add a third first overall caliber player down the middle. But I think there's a lot of reason that Slafkovsky is being mocked to New Jersey. Every single mock draft is because he would complement Jack Hughes quite well. You need more depth on the wings, both in terms of NHL talent and in the prospect pool. And again, he's tremendously physical and he knows how to use it. He has a lot of skill. He fit in a top 6 with New Jersey very, very nicely. So I honestly think the Devils, like, they won the draft lottery and everything now is just a bonus.
That's fair. That is fair because they were originally slotted, I think, 6th, 5th or 6th. I don't remember. But if they're slotted 6th, you're slotted outside of those top 5 players. Kind of a random question. I didn't send you this in the rundown, so if you don't have it off the top of your head, that's fine. But would you say any of these players are, because usually at least one is NHL ready immediately and is going to jump right in, but we didn't see that last year. Or no, I don't believe we saw that last year. Do you think there's anybody in this year's
Cole
draft?
Sillinger played.
Oh, okay. That's a random one. But
yeah, he went 12th overall.
That's wild. Do you think there's anybody at the top here? Cooley, Wright, Slafkovsky? Do you think anybody's jumping in the NHL this year?
I think Cooley is the best bet to not jump into the NHL next year. I would personally like to see Wright get another year in the OHL to just dominate, even if it's just to improve his confidence level and regain some of the cockiness that he had on the ice as a 15-year-old in the OHL. I think that could really help his game develop and help his high-end tools come out more consistently. But I think he'd be a very fine third-line centerman already in the NHL. So he could get by without issue. Slafkovsky is more difficult because he flourished internationally against NHL competition, and that projects very nicely. But he also was more limited in his Liga play in Finland. So that's a bit more of a wild card. Maybe just give him a chance in training camp to prove himself and then decide from there. But I actually think that the most likely player in the entire to play significant games next season is Marco Kasper. His game is very, very well-rounded. He's probably going to go top 10, even though he was mainly mocked in the teens and early 20s for most of the season. He is a very gritty player, one of the highest motors in the draft class, natural centerman. I could see him really going anywhere between 5 and 13 in this class, even if I wouldn't rank him quite that high, just because I think the upside is a bit more limited, but you're getting almost a shoe-in of a middle, at least a third-line center, which is a very impactful piece. Saying Marco Kasper could slot into an NHL fourth line without any issue and have a real identity and just be very effective in that role.
Sebastian, last question that I have for you, and I really thank you for spending some time with us, spending some European time, going overseas with Sebastian. But you're looking at all the scenarios here. You're a Canadiens writer. You're also a scout. You're kind of looking at it from 2 different angles. Is there a trade down scenario? Because this would kind of go hand in hand with the Devils situation. We're kind of in a similar slot. Do you think there's a trade down that would work for either team where, maybe it's a Columbus, maybe it's a Philadelphia? Is there a team that you're looking at that be like, trading down with them would make a lot of sense to me?
For the Habs or the Devils?
Go for both. Start with the Habs and then go to the Devils.
I actually think the most likely trade down scenario would be between the 2 teams. I think that swapping first and second overall is most likely in terms of trading down for the Habs, at least. I don't think they want to give up first overall for anything less than second overall. I think that the only reason that would happen would be because they hid their hands so well going up to the draft, and that New Jersey wants to push so hard for probably Slavkovsky, if I'm reading the Devils right here, and that they're worried that the Habs will pick him. Also, because the Habs are going to do their in-person interview with Slavkovsky tomorrow, so that's another layer of deception or whatever you want to call it. So I think if there is a trade down scenario, it's between the two teams. What that actual trade is, I don't know, because it could come with a condition of like where the Habs have to get a promise of like you won't draft Shane Wright or something, and then it's not a big pay to move up for New Jersey. If it's like a second round pick or a third round pick or something. If it's without that kind of promise, I don't know. Like that would be more interesting to me. I could even see a scenario where it's like the first overall pick and Josh Anderson for the second overall pick and something. Like what that something is, I'm not sure. I think if it's Jesper Bratt, that would be a huge get for Montreal, but also not the most realistic target because Jesper Bratt is a tremendous player. But Josh Anderson is a hot commodity in the league, even if I don't value him quite at the level that NHL teams would. But I think that's the most likely pairing of trade downs. But for the Devils, I think you could see them trading down and adding a decent asset as well. And I think that would be a very intelligent move. I think this is a year where trading down, especially from number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, is really good because, at least for me, second-ranked player is Frank Nazar, who is projected to go in the teens at this point. So if you can trade down, add a very valuable asset, and still get your second-ranked player in the teens, that's a home run swing right there, right? So if you can trade down to, I don't know, the Islanders, because the Islanders love their physicality, want to get Slick at 2, and you get to trade down to 13 and add, what do the Islanders have? Like the rights to Noah Dobson, if you add a ton on your side as well, because his RFA situation is pretty messy. But that would be something to work with, right? If it's like 2 and I'm not too familiar with your prospect system, but a decent prospect in your pool. If it's like Shakir Mukhamadullin and swap that for Noah Dobson and 13, I think that's a basis for an interesting trade that people wouldn't really see coming.
I don't hate that. I'm not gonna lie, and like you said, there are some players that people really love. Like Matthew Savoy is another guy who could fall. There's a couple people that really, really could fall that are really good. Sebastian, thank you so much for spending some time with us, giving us some of your time tonight in Europe. We love getting European people on the podcast. It's always a good time. I know you're not European yourself, but you're in Europe, so we're gonna make the claim.
I'm half European. It counts.
Yeah, we're staking the claim. But let everybody know where they can find all your draft stuff and kind of what you're working on over the next couple days.
So I am working with Dauber Prospects. So I joined them in late May, and I'll be the OHL scout at Dauber for next season. So that's a big thing. But just follow me on Twitter. So High_Sebastian on Twitter. Everything I do is posted there. So I also have a Substack where I wrote a ridiculous 23,000 word article on my top 100 prospects this year. So if you have a free like 6-7 hours of time, you're welcome to read that. But those are the main 2 things for me, but also at A Winning Habit, which is of course your sister site. I write there a couple times a month. I usually aim for, but it's not where I'm most active or put the most energy in. So Twitter is really the place to find me.
Yeah, A Winning Habit. I definitely said the wrong name of the blog earlier. I don't even know what I was talking about, so I'm sorry about that.
You said Habs Eyes on the Prize, which is the different one. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Sorry, I got confused. I'm talking to too many people today. I apologize. But A Winning Habit and Dauber Prospects, Sebastian High. But definitely follow him. Dauber Prospects, that means every Devils fan who's listening right now should go follow at @High_Sebastian. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I can't wait to see some of your draft takes tomorrow night. And good luck.
Much, and thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, Sebastian, before I let you go, I just wanted to say have a safe travels. And the next time in Montreal, I'm going to hit you up. Go to Hurley's Irish Pub, one of my favorite places in Montreal.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you so much.
That is Sebastian High, scout and Canadiens writer of Winning Habit.
Sam, I had it in my head. I was like, I lost it. Oh, wait, is it this? This is all I have, so I'm just going to throw it out there.
I'm telling you, brain farts happen all the time, but I'm telling you, I said on the Woo Report yesterday, I have a gut feeling they're going after Logan Cooley, the Habs, because the Slavkovsky hype, I'm telling you right now, Cole Caulfield, Logan Cooley could be a dynamic duo. We all talked about.
I think Cooley might be the best player for them, but since the draft is in Montreal, I think it's Shane Wright.
Could be. It could be. I don't know. I get a bad feeling about it because I am a Logan Cooley guy. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. There's something about that kid that he's just going to surprise us. Shake and bake with Jack Hughes on the power play one day. It will be dynamic. The amount of speed those two American-born players have. It would be dynamic. And you can roll three lines with three centermen. Remember, Dawson Mercer is a natural centerman. Is now a top six winger. He's shown he's playing. So, can never get enough centermen in this league.
How's this for a trade down scenario, Sam? Let's say this happens. Let's say Montreal takes Cooley and drops Shane Wright to 2. Arizona sees that. Arizona thought Cooley or Wright was falling into their lap, right? They thought that they were going to get a superstar center. Zero chance they weren't going to get a superstar center. Now there's a real possibility with the clock ticking down that they're going to end up having to pick between 2 defensemen and a winger. Do you think with 3 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks that Arizona might say, I got to trade up to 2, we got to get a center. We got to get Wright. We wanted Cooley. Cooley's gone. We have to get Wright. Do you think there's any chance that they can dangle a second-round pick to move up from 2 to 3 or 3 to 2?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I got to tell you, in that scenario, for the Devils to actually move down, I would do it if they dangled that.
Down anywhere in the top 5. Anywhere in the top 5.
But I don't know. I'd start stockpiling for 2023. To be honest with you. Especially with a team like Arizona.
Yeah, but they're never going to give up their first round pick. Their first round pick might be first overall next year.
Maybe they're pissed off that Taylor Hall didn't work out.
Yeah, maybe. But John Chayka's not there anymore, so.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
There's a lot that could happen. There's a lot of Cooley discourse. There's a lot to There's a lot of just speculation. I'm glad that the Brat speculation is putting when Sebastian mentioned Brat, I'm like, he's setting himself up. They're gonna kill him, and then he kind of said that that was not worth it because Brat's a phenomenal player. But so he saved himself with our fan base, but the Montreal fan base just keeps bringing up Brat, so he's probably just seeing it in his comment section constantly. But I was gonna ask him what he thought about the Montreal trade rumors, but I was like, what? I don't want to make him an enemy of his own fan base. But man, some of those Montreal trade proposals. Woo! They were dumb.
Yeah. It's hard to crack Montreal what they're going to do. That's
Montreal,
why
Vancouver, man.
I don't know. Especially in that town, Montreal, where the media is just hyped up on steroids, compared to, hockey in the United States. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I will tell you, at our live draft party at Pasta Grill by Enzo's, that if Logan Cooley is selected first overall on live air for the first time ever, I may actually have to walk outside and scream because I'll be pissed. I'd be pissed. I would be really, really, really pissed if Logan Cooley is not on the board at number 2.
You'd be pissed?
Yeah, I'd be pissed because I wanted him. I already have dreams of Jack Hughes and Logan Cooley in the Stanley Cup Finals, where Lindy Ruff is rolling 4 lines.
Okay, so I'm usually the one yelling at you about this. I feel like we Freaky Friday'd this and we swapped roles. Aren't you worried about being too small? Like on individualistically. Because what if you sign Johnny Gaudreau? That's another small player. Or what if you trade for Alex DeBrincat?
Because the defense is huge. The goaltender is huge. You can get a big winger, a banger, in free agency or via trade. I'm thinking like Matthew Tkachuk one day. You can get a Bertuzzi another day. You could actually, in this draft, you have to draft best available, and then you could flip Cooley if you want to in 6 years to get your prize big guy with soft hands in front of the crease. Look at what Nathan Bastian did last season on the 4th line and on the power play. The guy's just big. He scored some goals. But I'll tell you what, guys like Cooley and Jack Hughes are not a dime a dozen. And I'd rather be loaded with those type of players. And I'm not too concerned about Alex DeBrincat being 5'7". I'm not concerned about Logan Cooley's size, although he did very well this combine, showing. And I'm not too concerned. And I'm a guy that likes beef. I love beef, but I'm sure you can get beef in the later rounds, and I'm sure you can get beef in free agency. And it's not the end of the world when your first overall pick or a second overall pick doesn't have that beef. Who would you pick? Who would you pick all over again in the draft back in the early 90s if you were the Philadelphia Flyers? Now, they did trade for Eric Lindros, but Peter Forsberg, in my mind, was the better player.
It's just so hard to say because Lindros had those injuries.
Yeah.
Lindros at his peak was better than Forsberg at his peak. Lindros.
I would agree. In '95, he was unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, you thought Lindros was going to win MVPs, like multiple. Yeah. But was there a little karma there? Was there a little like a bad juju because of how he dealt with Quebec? I don't know. But wait, which draft were you talking about with? I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Well, there was Eric Lindros. He didn't sign, and then I think the next year, I believe it's Forsberg was drafted, I think 6th overall, I think, by the Flyers.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And they used him as a trade piece to get Lindros. Eric Lindros. But if you say pound for pound, if Lindros and Forsberg were in the same draft, do you go with beef? It's not, the beef is not end all be all. who's the better player. That's all I'm saying. And look, Logan Cooley.
I also think Lindros is a better player today than he was in those mid to late 90s rough and tumble, rock'em sock'em robots type hockey that it was.
If Lindros played today,
he might be McDavid.
Just because it's almost like Shaquille O'Neal. It's kind of like Shaquille O'Neal, just big. I mean, his edges were just phenomenal. Lindros, the way he skated, he was fast for a big guy, and it's a different game now. But Logan Cooley, from what we've heard on this podcast today, he's not. He's fearless. He's fearless. Going into the corners, getting dirty, kind of like Peter Forsberg years ago. So, again, Slavkovsky, he could be a pawn in this. I like what Sebastian High was saying about it, that Montreal, they're keeping the Devils guessing. They're keeping the league guessing. And we should find out tomorrow what's Montreal up to. But I just got a feeling they're going to have Logan Cooley. And I'll be mad.
And do you think Montreal is going to pull the Ray Shero where they walk up? You did this in 2019? They walk up, they go, I want to thank the city of Montreal.
You got to look up to the crowd. Yeah.
Thank all of the Canadiens fans.
And then they're going to say something in French. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I want to. They're gonna, it's going to be an Oscars acceptance speech, basically. And then.
Bonjour.
Now to the pick. Yeah. They're going to open an envelope like it's the Best Actor award because they don't remember all of the credentials.
They're going to bring somebody from the 1950-something
National Development Team program. Where's Cooley going? Is Cooley going to Notre Dame? Is that what I remember saying?
No, is it Wisconsin? I forgot which school. I should know this.
I'll look it up because I remember I saw it and then I forgot it. It's Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah, that's it. It's one of those Big Ten schools.
Yeah. So yeah, he's pretty much locked into college next year. He's kind of the only one that's there's a couple others that are pretty locked in, but he's set to go to college next year. Although there were some rumors that he left it open that he could go back, but I think he's pretty set. He's going to college next year.
Yeah, he's going to college. And that's okay. That's okay. I gotta get Gavin on. I'm trying to look for his number. All of our I know, but everything's all over the place, Nick.
I know. It's been a wild night. This is what we don't do 3-hour podcasts very often. I guess it's going to come in just short of 3 hours because we got Vinnie Parisi is going to be our last guest, and he's coming on at 9. So we're probably gonna give you 2.5 hours of quality draft and trade rumor and free agent rumor content. I can't wait to talk to Vinny because we're gonna make him talk about Alex DeBrincat. We're going to make him talk about his boy. The Chicago guy himself is going to tell us. But next we're having on Gavin Chiasson. Gavin Chiasson, so excited to talk about him. He's the owner of Recruit Scouting. I love talking to ownership. We get Josh Harris on the podcast one day, but today we're going to get the owner of Recruit Scouting. He just worked for hours on his draft guide. You got to go out and check out his draft guide. You heard our guy Jack Dawkins. We have him on all the time. We love what he has to say. He helps Gavin Chiasson. He works with him on this. He said that Cooley was his number one. He thought that maybe Cooley might be number one in this. So it's going to be interesting to see what Gavin has to say. He's coming on momentarily. Man, I'm learning so much about this draft, especially at the top. There's so much to learn at the top. This is what happens when you have legitimate discourse at the top. And that's the thing, is that a lot of it might seem it's not legitimate, but I think it is legitimate discourse at the top. So, Sam, you're back. You got Gavin Chiasson with you.
Yes, and you know what? I'm getting hungry right now. I can't wait to try the pasta bolognese at Enzo's tomorrow night at 1916 Route 57 in Hackettstown. Pasta Grill by Enzo's, where we're going to have a live NHL draft party, live podcast as it's happening. Come see us. Anyway, sorry for plugging, but anyway.
Plug and play.
Yeah. All right. So we had Jack Dawkins on, who I absolutely love. He works hard, all that. But we got somebody really awesome. His boss, the owner of Recruit Scouting. His name is Gavin Chiasson. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Chiasson.
You can find him, Chiasson. You can find him on Twitter at NHL Chiasson. Gavin, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
Good. Yourself?
We're doing great, Gavin. Thanks so much for coming on. You finally got out of the computer screen for a little while. I know you worked for a long, long time on that draft guide. Before we kind of get into just your analysis, I kind of want to know, what is it like to put one of those together? Like, what is it like to spend so much time on it, see it come together, and then kind of see the fruits of your work? Sam, what happened? I think Sam's working behind the scenes. He's not talking to me, but all right. Well, I will vamp with the best of them.
I'm sorry. I forgot to hit the button. Sorry. He's back on.
Okay. Gavin, welcome back. Sorry about that. A little bit of a technical difficulty there. But
Good.
we got you back. So I'll just re-ask the question. You spent hours putting together this draft guide. What's it like to kind of see it, to put all the work together and then see it come together and then kind of see the reaction to it? Tell us about that process.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed reaction on my own project there, but it's magical seeing it come together. Just hours of work a day for a couple of months even. I would come home from an 8-hour shift and it was pretty much a 4 or 5 hour grind, maybe a little dinner in between, just watching prospects and trying to get it out. It was my first year doing it though, so looking back, I think I would start it a little bit earlier because towards the end it was just such a rush. I didn't really get to go in and make any corrections writing-wise. So some of it was a little bit just putting my thoughts on a paper. Wasn't too worried about grammar. I just wanted to get my knowledge about the prospect out there, and that's it. And even then, I only put it out about a week before the draft. So definitely would start earlier, get it out earlier next year. Was happy to get it out, though. Lots of work. Very proud of the quotes that I've gotten from the rest of the people at Recruit Scouting. Just an all-around, great team effort.
And Gavin, we're going to share that on social media so all the Devils fans looking to get those last-minute reviews of their prospects, the second, third, fourth, fifth rounders. We got 3 fifth-round picks this year. So we got, we're going to bring in 9 new players if we don't trade down or up or in between or whatever. So we do have a lot of prospects to get to. So let's get right into the questions about the prospects. Go with the obvious. Second overall pick. The Devils have it. There are 5 players that seem to be in the conversation. What are you doing with the second overall pick, Gavin?
Well, it's so difficult just because of how the draft is shaping up to be this hype fest of Wright versus Slavkovsky and all of that. It really depends who gets taken by the Habs at 1. If, we all have the gut feeling that it's going to be Shane Wright. And I know you guys love your Logan Cooley. You guys are drinking the Kool-Aid and all of that. But the Devils, they can draft Cooley. He would be the best player available at 2, for sure. I have him number 1 on my board. I think it all comes down to a lot of situational stuff. if the Habs draft Cooley first overall, they have to wait a year. I think it's very important that you give Cooley an extra year to develop, and then I think he's great. If they're not willing to wait a year, then they go Wright. And the Devils can easily take Cooley at 2. But I am a huge fan of them taking the other Slovakian, who I think would be an absolute key piece to the Devils' future success, in Simon Nemec. While I don't have him second overall on my list, I think I'm not too big of a fan of drafting based on position and usually best player available, but Simon Nemec is one of those players that has franchise potential. If he's going to be your future top pair with Luke Hughes, you're looking at some of the best defensive pairing in the entire NHL. So if I'm the Devils, I would definitely consider taking Simon Nemec at 2. He's good offensively, but he's even better defensively. He reads plays extremely well, has great positioning, great stick work. He makes his presence known, and I just think he's an all-around player that you can't miss on the ice.
I'm sweating, Gavin. This is making me sweat. Like this choice. I'm getting so many mixed signals. It's just there's so many people with so many opinions on the second overall pick, because I loved Nemec. I'm saying it wrong. I hate these names. I'm so terrible at them. I'm sorry, but I loved him at first. I did a ton of research on him versus Jurasik, and I fell in love with Jurasik because of the ceiling that I feel like Jurasik has. But I mean, you sit there and now I think about what that pairing would look like with Hughes. I do think like that. Oh, either way, do you think at least whoever the Devils come out with 2, even because I know Sam says that Slavkovsky is his last. I think Jack Dawkins also said Slavkovsky is his 5th. Do you think the Devils are in good shape either way? Would you say at least?
Can you repeat that last, just the question part again? Sorry, it's cutting in and out.
Sorry about that. The 5 players at the top. If the Devils take any of those 5, do you think they're in good shape?
I think so. Yeah, the way I see it, there's probably 3 franchise potential guys in this draft, and that being Wright, Cooley, and Nemec. After that, it is a little bit of a drop, I suppose, but I don't think they could go wrong with a lot of players, especially if you're grabbing a winger. If they took Slavkovsky, you were absolutely fine. If they took Jiricek, you're absolutely fine. There's a lot of players that could go at 2, and I think it's just one of those drafts that if you're picking in the top 3, you really can't be disappointed. There's so many top tier talent that can be taken in the top 10. So, yeah, definitely not a bad thing if they were to take Slavkovsky or Gauthier or Nemec, Jiricek. Any of those guys would just be great for the Devils.
So you put together your draft guide. I'm sure you went in with some, pre-distinct notions of some players. Is there any that while you put together the guide, their stock may have fallen, or maybe another player where their stock has risen? Can you give us examples of some players where it surprised you as you put the guide together where they ended up ranking?
Yeah, with previous rankings, I used to just go a lot based on feeling. Like, I think this guy's better than this guy or will be better. And I'll be honest, as proud as I am of my past rankings, this ranking just feels the most correct, because I would write out every single player's max potential and then their chances of making that potential. So there was a lot of players who, based on my feelings, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting to have this guy that low, or whoa, I wasn't expecting to have that guy that high, but this is truly how I feel about him. So some fallers, David Goyette, I thought would have cracked my first round. He did not. Another OHLer in Hunter Height, I thought would crack my top 40. He ended up around the 60s for me. And I know you guys love him in the second round. And I do love this player as well, but there are players that I like better. Is Yanni Nyman fell out of the top 100 players, which I was not expecting, but it is how I felt. I think you're looking at a beast of a player in Finland, but you are looking at a bottom six winger. And while important, there's no for sure guarantees in NHLer. So I would definitely swing on him a lot later than the second round. And for risers,
you're breaking my heart.
This guy's been. Oh, I know. I'm so sorry, but it's just how I felt. I love the player though.
Okay.
For the risers, I've got Jagger Firkus out of the WHL, who has been rising on a lot of people's boards. Some NHL teams might pass on him due to his size, but I think once he starts adding weight, he's already got a ridiculous shot, and he's only about 155 pounds. So once he adds 15 pounds or so of muscle, I think he's going to be a super skillful player. Three other players that have risen up my draft board a lot, from Kamloops Blazers of the WHL, it's Fraser Minton. Probably not a guy who's going to occupy your top lines, but he's most likely going to be a second or third line center. He's responsible defensively. He just plays such a mature game. I think his talent will get him to the NHL. I don't think it'll put him up into the higher lines of an NHL team, but I think you're looking at a for sure NHLer. With Alexander Suzdalev out of Sweden, he's got size to him, and he's pretty scrawny still. I think he's got a lot of weight to add, and I've just loved his play this year. That's one player that I wasn't expecting to have as a first rounder, but after giving him my final viewings there and feeling his potential and his potential rank, I was like, yeah, I guess he fits in the first round. And one player who did not show up on my list at all until the last viewing, and I made sure to watch him, a couple of times, because I was just surprised at what I had found. He was not ranked anywhere on Elite Prospects. I have not seen him on a list all year. He was one of the top scorers for HV71 of the Junior 20 League in Sweden. His name is Nils Juntorp, and he is one of my favorites and a huge riser and a gem in the later rounds. If New Jersey picks him, a lot of people, even hardcore draft fans, might be like, who's this guy? But he's an insanely good player. He's got size to him. He's got physicality, an insane shot. He's got good hands. He drives the play extremely well. He's just a player that is going to be a fan favorite if drafted by any NHL team.
Yeah. I that's a lot. That's a lot of players, but it kind of tells you that this is kind of one of those weird years where there's just a lot of players that could kind of go any way. So with that said, let's look at that early second round pick. I think there's a lot of first round caliber talent that's going to fall out of the first round and be there in that early second round. I, for one, was banging the door for Arthur Kaliev in his draft year, and he's become a really good player for the Los Angeles Kings. Is there a player like that you think is going to fall to the early second round with first round talent?
I think there's a few. I have a lot of those guys situated at the end of my first, so it wouldn't be a huge drop. I could see Nathan Gaucher being in a Devils jersey. He's ranked high by a lot of NHL teams, and I think there's definitely a chance he's going to go higher than he should. But I think there's also a chance that he drops out of the first, and he would probably be a good player to have on the Devils, being a third or fourth line centerman. He's reliable. He's got size, physicality. He's a workhorse. I think he's definitely an NHLer, which is why I have him situated at the end of my first. But then there are also second rounders that I have earlier in the second round that I think would be great additions to draft. Another one that could fall out of the first for me is Owen Beck. I don't know how much teams actually love him, but he's kind of similar to Nathan Gaucher. He's a reliable centerman. I think you're looking at a for sure NHLer, even if it isn't on the top lines. For other second liners, I like Noah Warren on defense. One of the hardest hitters in the draft. He's got good offensive talent. He's got good IQ. He has some upside. His wingspan is huge. He's definitely a player that New Jersey Devil fans would be happy to have if taken in the second. And one I think will go in the second, and is definitely a good option is a player by the name of Cameron Lund. If you guys miss out on Cutter Gauthier and you were a fan of him, draft Cameron Lund into the later rounds. He's one of those power forward wingers that I think will have a decent chance of cracking an NHL lineup.
So the Devils have a habit of taking a guy in the 5th and 6th round, and they become a top 6 player. Igor Sharangovich, Jesper Bratt. There's a couple of examples where the Devils got absolute gems, and it didn't take them long to figure out that they were great players. Is there anybody in this draft that you think 5th, 6th, 7th round that is going to just phenomenally outplay? They have the tools, but maybe it's situational. Maybe there's a different reason. But is there somebody in this draft that you think they can become a star?
I think there are definitely a few. There's a lot of players with some just very risky potentials towards the end of the draft. A couple of them I actually have ranked pretty high because I like taking swings. Once you reach that 3rd round, I'm all about taking swings. Draft guys that are high upside. Czechia forward Dominic Ryman is one of my favorites. Very silky smooth. There were a couple of games where he didn't have a good showing that were important games. But I think if you take a look at the rest of what he's done this year, he is just such an exciting player to watch. He brings you out of your seat. Very quick player, quick hands. Maybe he moves quicker than he thinks sometimes, but like you said, hey, a couple of years later after being taken in the 6th or 7th, 1 or 2 years later, you look at him and go, oh my God, how did he fall that far? And that could be someone like Dominic Ryman or from the WHL, Ben Hemmerling. Sort of the same style there. He's a quick and speedy player. Other than that, I like Marcus Nguyen from the WHL as well. Didn't get too many minutes this year. He was a little bit behind for that, but very speedy, quick hands, loves driving the play as well. A bit undersized, but I think he's someone who, once he's given the minutes in the WHL, he's going to absolutely hammer it home points-wise. And then once again, Nils Juntorp. I'm just really hoping he gets drafted because he's been so under the radar this year that I think if the Devils take him in the late rounds, oh my God, he's going to make New Jersey fans extremely happy.
One last player I want to ask you about. My co-host Sam Blue is all in on Damian Gardner. What are your thoughts on Damian Gardner? Oof,
yes. He's a Northern Ontario boy. So he's from Eagle Lake, which is pretty far up north in Ontario. Going down to U.S. high school hockey this year. He's got size. I'm going to be honest, as much as I would love to root for him, I wasn't so much impressed by him. I'm not usually a huge fan of high school players. They have to really impress me a lot to be noticed. I really wanted to like Gardner. I think he was good at the high school level. I think moving into major junior, moving into the NCAA, I could see him struggling a little bit. I can see him being someone who will play a decently important role in the NCAA, but I think he's going to be a bottom line, bottom 6 guy at that. I'm not sure how much room he has to make the NHL.
Sam, why don't you come here? Why don't you come up here real quick? Here's the thing, Sam, and I think this is something we need to learn. We bring these people on here because they're smarter than us, the topics that we're bringing them on here.
Of course.
We keep bringing up our own names, and Gavin's a smarter scout. He's a smarter recruit or prospect guy than us. Gavin, I appreciate you coming on and providing some of your knowledge. Before you go, can you tell everybody where they can find your draft guide, where they could find where all your recruiting and stuff, and maybe promote what you're doing tomorrow for the draft?
Absolutely. Well, I'll probably be at work tomorrow until 4, come home and just kind of get some snacks together and watch the draft at home. I will be tweeting a lot of what's going on in the draft, my opinions on players that are being taken, how much I think they fit for their NHL team. And you can find that at NHL Chiasson on Twitter. For the draft guide, you can go to the website recruitscouting.com. You'll find a great team of writers out there who love writing about prospects, love studying the game. A lot of players making moves for us. It's going to be a great year upcoming. So definitely excited for that. That's where you guys can find us. We also have our Twitter page for that at Rec Scouting. And yeah, that's where you can find us.
And I'm going to push out that draft guide right now. Well, it looks like it's a different draft guide. I'll find it. Oh, no, here, I got it. We're good. Everything's good. So I'm pushing out that draft guide right now. So if you follow the Pitchfork Puck account as well, you're going to see that draft guide. This is why, Gavin, a piece of advice, don't try to do stuff while you're podcasting. I'm not very good at this. But I'm glad that I could teach you something while you're on here because you taught me a ton. You brought up so many prospects. I've learned so much. Gavin, Chiasson, thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely going to have you on again. We got to talk more prospects. But
thanks for having me.
Thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks, Gavin. That is Gavin Chiasson, owner of Recruit Scouting, also Jack Dawkins' boss. You can find him on Twitter at NHL Chiasson. Nick, you're multitasking again.
No, absolutely not. I'm definitely paying 100% attention.
Well, sometimes I can't tell if your video feed froze or something on, so I was just trying to say something just to wake you up as we're getting to the last part of this marathon of 2022 NHL draft preview. And one thing I learned, my scouting sucks.
Oh, mine does
that
too.
was my guy, but I was looking for beef, though. I was looking for beef, and I think I got my beef.
My mock draft came out. You got to share it on all the platforms so that people see my mock draft. But it's apparently terrible because my second round pick, he had 100th overall. Man, that one hurt.
Yeah, but you know what? At the same time, and this is what I love about the draft, you really don't know. You only know with the information you have. You don't know if there's a guy in the 7th round that figures it out in college and then comes to the NHL and is a first liner. You just don't know. And that's what makes the draft so interesting, how everybody turns out. And then when that article was written, NHL.com, the other day and redraft, playing Monday morning quarterback on steroids and Nico Hischier at number 9. It's like, all right, I had to go to pucksandpitchforks.com's editor-in-chief and holler at him. Be like, I want to write about this because it's pissing me off. And I did.
I almost
go to pucksandpitchforks.com
podcast just so we could yell at him, but I figured, maybe we'll wait.
No. The problem is, Nick, like when we talk about press credentials with the Devils, I'm just speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for you because you're more professional. There's no way I'm going to allow myself to be in that locker room because I can't help myself. So that's why I stay away. I try not to troll, but sometimes you want to ask the hard questions, though, and that's and seeing, after that press conference, I kind of liked a certain reporter from NJ.com that, I liked how he ended it there when he was asking questions. I love that stuff. I love the Larry Brooks, and John Tortorella. I think Larry Brooks needs to find a job in Philadelphia. Please.
You want Larry Brooks to go to Philadelphia?
Yeah, so we can have the John Tortorella interviews.
Oh, hey, he just has to go to the other locker room. Then they play a couple times a year.
Yeah. So we're waiting for Vinny. He should be coming
Vinny's
on in a couple minutes.
Man, it's. But what I was going to say, Sam, is it hasn't felt like 2 hours. I don't feel like we've been talking for 2 hours. This has flown by. We have a lot of good guests, and
we have a lot of guests, a lot of technical problems too. But I've been trying to cover up behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's
one of those days.
It's
like
podcast.
Yeah, it's Monday. No, not Monday morning. It's Murphy's Law. You have a big draft party, and then suddenly we haven't seen these kind of technical issues in like a year or two. Anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of draft parties, we're gonna have one.
Oh, really?
Pasta.
Where is it?
Pasta Grill by Enzo's. 1916 Route 57, beautiful Hackettstown, New Jersey. In the Mansfield section, in the heart of Warren County. If you don't want to drive to Stone Pony, I've been getting all this. Sorry, Sam. I'm going to Stone Pony. I'm telling you, if you're going to go to Stone Pony, do me a favor. You're going to go to Stone Pony, that's fine. I'm not going to hold it against you. But at least watch the podcast while you're at Stone Pony. And when you're in line for Dougie Hamilton or Grant Marshall, good friend of the podcast, Bruce Driver, good friend of the podcast, Ken Danico, good friend of the podcast, and Jim Dowd, good friend of the podcast. You show them your phone and be like, look, the Let's Go Devils podcast guys are in Northwest Jersey. You know what? Those guys would probably want to leave and drive all the way up to Hackettstown to be with us. But they have to work that day.
This is what happens when you put the draft on a Thursday. This was a terrible move.
Yeah, it should be on a Friday. Should be on a Friday.
Because, Sam, now on Friday, a work day, you got rounds 2 through 7, which is a slog. Like, I'd rather have that be on a Saturday. I check Twitter while I'm having a beer at the brewery, or I'm chilling, I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This was... And now I got to write on a Friday because I got to write about all these prospects. Man, you're killing me. You're killing me, NHL.
But you know what's nice? It's one day closer to the Pasta Bolognese. 4-0 when we had it for Game Day Live. Game Day Live. And this is our segue to my wonderful co-host on Game Day Live. Also, Pucks and Pitchforks.com contributor. His name is Vinnie Parisi. You can find him on Twitter at his original Twitter account, at Vinnie Parisi. Vinny, you're streaming live in from your studios. Have you been listening to this fine programming tonight?
Guys, I'm on my third show today. I did my hockey show live at 2 p.m. Central, and then I just did my baseball show at 6 p.m. Central, so I got off that, and now I'm on here. So you're going to have to fill me in, and I'll catch the rest after we're done recording later tonight.
There's a lot of really good players in this draft, Vinny. We gotta be careful because there's a lot of landmines. I feel like there's a lot of players that are gonna just burn you.
But Damian Gardner is the sleeper.
No, it's honestly wild. It reminds me of 2017. We went in thinking like, okay, we know the top two, and the best player in the draft ended up being one of the guys who wasn't sitting in the little green room behind. Cale McCarr was sitting in the stands with the rest of us. And, I was there in Chicago. And then, guys like Suzuki and Ottinger, like these guys just came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, the 2017 draft looked so much better than it originally was touted to be. So, yeah, I got a bad feeling about this draft for a lot of teams.
And that's the thing is that maybe it's like this isn't 2012. 2012 was the year where there really wasn't any good players. But 2017 was the year where you just didn't know who the good players were. Jason Robertson fell to the second round, and now he's a superstar for the Dallas Stars. And you said Ottinger, another really good player. Elias Pettersson fell to 5. You look at I think what's going to happen here is you're going to have a similar situation as 2017, where you got 5 players who are clearly the top 5. I know Gauthier is kind of getting in that conversation. I don't have him there, But, some people do. I'm talking about the 5. I think 4 of those 5 are going to turn into stars. Similar to 2017 where Heischer, Pettersson, Makar, and Heiskanen, all stars. I think you're going to get 4 of those 5 are going to be stars in this draft. The issue is, who's the one that's not going to be a star?
And I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, if it was Shane Wright and people were like, oh, well, that's why they were talking about passing on him. Or if it was Slavkovsky and they were like, oh, that's why we compared him to Capo Caco. Or if it's Cooley, it's like, there's a reason he wasn't the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. I don't know. It is honestly just the scariest thing. I'm nervous for tomorrow. And let me be clear, when the Devils get on stage and make that pick and say that name, I will be all in on that guy being the next Sidney Crosby. But until that point, I'm nervous.
All right, let's go out of order here because we're already talking about the draft. Who do you want? Who do you want second overall?
I think as of right now, if Montreal takes Shane Wright with the number 1 overall pick, I find it very difficult to see them taking anyone, and I think I would go this route too. Slavkovsky's got to be the guy for me, only because if it's a tie, right? If you think 2, 3, and 4 are all the same level of prospect ranking or whatever you want to say, if it's 2B, 2C, and 2D, I would go with Slavkovsky just because I think you can win with a developed Hughes, a developed Heischer, and a developed Mercer as your top 3 centermen. And people talk about moving Hughes to the wing. I hate that idea if he can play center at a healthy level, just because we've seen him be less productive on the wing. And if you take Cooley or Wright, then now you have that extra centerman. It's like, who do you trade? What do you do? So Slavkovsky's the winger. You have Bratt, you have Sharon Govich. Who knows beyond there in the long term? We hope Alexander Holtz, if they don't trade him. But that's kind of where I'm at with the second overall pick at this point.
I'm with you on this. Whoever they take, I'm gonna run through the towns like Paul Revere saying, this is the guy. We got the guy, and I'm gonna pump his tires. I'm gonna go all in on him. I'm excited about him, but man, it is scary. Like you said, it's this. I told we had Gavin Chiasson from Recruit Scouting. A guy's getting into the scout world and into the prospects conversation. He brought up Simon Nemec, and he was like, I think he's the best guy, and I think him matched with Luke Hughes for the next 10 years would be the best defensive pair in the league. And then you got people who are saying, Bob McKenzie's saying Slavkovsky is the best player in this draft. Bob McKenzie's one of the best minds in hockey. And then you got so many people saying that Logan Cooley, you got Sambu over here. Logan Cooley is the guy. Vinny, my head's spinning.
Logan Cooley gained some steam in the last week, too. I didn't hear his name associated with the New Jersey Devils at 2. Everyone had an opinion, and it was either Slavkovsky or Nemec. And cool, Nemec with Luke Hughes would be awesome. Buccigross told me last week that Luke Hughes can sign with the Devils at any time, become a millionaire whenever he feels like it, and run their top power play unit next year. He thinks going to Michigan would probably be a smarter idea because then he'd have that extra year of development to come in even more developed. But the thought of that is just awesome. So like you said, whoever they take, VP will be all in.
Vinny, I got to tell you something. On this podcast 2 months ago, I was the one that went all in on Cooley and never looked back. Right, Nick?
There you go.
You were my witness.
You
Yeah, no, you were on Cooley. I was off Cooley. I was out of the Cooley sweepstakes. So if Cooley is the guy, I'm going to look real bad. But it won't be the first time. It won't be the last time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, who really knows?
I mean, that's the thing is that I did my mock draft on, I used FC Hockey, which kind of has a mock draft simulator. And the one thing I didn't like about the way, it has an algorithm and it changes every single time. It's similar to like PFF's mock draft simulator for the NFL, but it went super chalk. I don't think that's how it's going to go, and I think the Devils are going to look for players that fall. And a lot of players didn't fall, so I ended up with Jan Neiman in the second round because a lot of those first-round players didn't fall. Vinny, is there anyone you think is going to fall? Is there any later-round picks you think that the Devils are going to take that are going to look really good?
Ooh, so there's a kid named Devin Kaplan who I was looking at. I think he's someone of intrigue when the Devils come up. I want to say, what is it, pick 36, something like that? 34, 35. It's something in that range. I forget the exact number. I think
you're at 37. I just wrote about this. You would think I know, but
yeah, so did I. I literally did too. Because Chicago's at 38. I want to say the Devils are 37. You're right. They were a pick before them. The other Jack Hughes. I know there are going to be people, if the Devils took him, that would say that the only reason they took him is because of the name and it's funny and it's cute. Similar to like people who said the same thing about Luke Hughes, even though Luke Hughes, looking back, might go 1 if that draft were redone today, based on how their seasons at Michigan went. Luke Hughes outshined Owen Power, and it wasn't even really close. But, yeah, I don't know. The Jack Hughes kid from Northeastern, I don't see him slipping past his father because they have 3 picks in the first 33 picks, and there's no way his dad, Kent Hughes, doesn't take him if he's sitting there at 33, in my opinion. But that's someone to keep an eye on as well. I'm not really a fan of too many of the goalies, and I know the Devils in the long term could probably use a goalie to draft and all that, but I don't think this is the year. So those are kind of some of the names I'm looking at. Adam Sikora, too, is someone to consider as well. It's a couple names I was looking at.
The one goalie that I'm looking at that I would think I would be excited if he was there is Topes Villano. I'm probably saying it wrong, but he's an overseas goalie. He's looked really good. A couple people have pushed me to him. He's somebody who could fall to the 5th round or could go in the 3rd. So if he's there in the 4th or 5th round and the Devils take him, because they take a goalie every year, he's somebody that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I last looked, he was ranked. Wasn't he ranked as the top goalie in the draft or second highest?
Is he that high? I thought the American kid was. Hold on.
Tyler Brennan. Tyler Brennan, I know, is up there. I was looking today, and they had them ranked all over the place. According to NHL.com, the staff ranked Topias Lainanen. I'm with you. I don't know how to say his name. They ranked him second, and Tyler Brennan was number 1. Yep.
Okay. All right. So he's probably going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round then. If they take him in the 3rd round, I'm still going to be excited.
Me too.
Yeah, Tyler Brennan is like the top guy. Another guy that I saw some people. Oh, Dylan Silverstein is a player that I'm excited about. He's ranked 5th on that list. He's another player that I was kind of circling and I think could be really good too. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of goalies taken. I don't think there's a lot of good ones this year.
No, there literally might be less than 10. And that sounds like a lot, but for 160 something picks, it's really not a lot at all, because that means every other position is a skater, and goalies help win you Stanley Cups. And we've seen some of the teams. We've seen an example of every different kind of goalie winning the Stanley Cup over the last couple of years. Like Darcy Kemper was kind of picked up last minute after they lost Grubauer in the expansion draft, and Vasilevsky's a first-round pick. So like the goalie thing is even more scary than the draft itself.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. It's the day before the draft. I think this is the last day you're going to at least get this much discourse on Alex DeBrincat. You are uniquely suited to talk about this because you are a number 1 Devils fan. You're also the site expert for the Windy City. So you're kind of playing both hats here. The first question I want to ask is, do you believe the discourse is real with Alex DeBrincat? Because we learned today that the discourse with Jesper Bratt was just all baloney. Do you really think the Chicago Blackhawks are trying to trade him?
Yes, it is always interesting when something Devils and Blackhawks come together, because I have to. The work hat is for the Blackhawks, and the fan hat and the work hat is for the Devils. But I do think there is some merit to the Alex DeBrincat rumors for a couple reasons. Trading Jesper Bratt makes no sense for New Jersey. It just doesn't make any logical sense. In a year where Hughes got hurt for a lot of it, he led them in scoring. He paced Hischier in points. Now, I know Nico and Jack were probably the 2 best in terms of like points per game or points per health, I guess you could say, because Nico wasn't necessarily himself until, early January. Around the All-Star break is really when both of those two started picking up. But from beginning to end, Bratt was their best forward all season long. And it reminds me of like when Kyle Palmieri would outshine Taylor Hall. We know Hall's better, but Palmieri, he was the better, more productive player from beginning to end a lot of the times. And I felt the same way about Jesper Bratt this year. Now with DeBrincat, it makes all the sense in the world to trade him because Seth Jones at 9 for 8 years kicks in this year. They have Taves and Kane each at 10.5 for this upcoming year. And that's just one more year, but still, if DeBrincat goes out and scores 40 again, he's going to make 9.5, 9, 8.5 at minimum if he gets a real nice team-friendly deal. And Taves and Kane are going to be gone, and you're going to be a rebuilding team with 2 players making $18 million combined. And you have the worst farm system probably in the Western Conference. The only team I could think of that has a worse farm system than Chicago, maybe San Jose, but I don't know. Even they've drafted better than them lately. It's not great what's going on in Chicago. I think that's probably the worst situation in the NHL right now, in my opinion, just because I think they've gone so far backwards. Eventually, they'll push it forward. Every team does, but you can get assets for DeBrincat. And then if he goes out there and they keep him and he goes out there and he scores a 23-goal season, 60 points, just a very average year, then, yeah, they're not going to have to pay him that much, but he's also going to be worth significantly less on the trade market, and they're a rebuilding team with not much to build around. So, and they don't even have a first-round pick this year because they thought they'd be a contender this year, and they went out and traded it for Seth Jones. I like just that whole thing makes no sense to me, and they need to reset. If they can get a Thompson, Holtz, and second overall, even if it's not second overall, if the Devils trade them both of their second-round picks, Holtz, and pick any prospect, Zetterlund, Thompson, Ahotuk, any of them, for DeBrincat, I think both teams would be smart to make that trade because the Devils, A, can afford DeBrincat. They can use DeBrincat because they're low on the wings in terms of depth. And basically that's a long-winded way of saying it makes sense for Chicago to trade DeBrincat. That's why I believe in the rumors. I never really thought for 1 second the Devils would trade Bratt. That just makes no sense. There is a very small chance that if the Devils traded Bratt, they'd be receiving something equally as valuable.
All right. So what's the reaction in the Chicago Blackhawks community if you get, like, say you don't give them, so you say you're not giving them second overall? Because we've seen the proposals. The proposals are something like Holtz, Foote, second overall, and the 2023 first-round pick. Congratulations. I'm sure that's what you want. That's not what you're going to get. There was rumors this week that Chicago is not getting anywhere near what they want for the proposal. Do you think that with those rumors coming out that the fan base would be happy with a package surrounding Holtz and a bunch of smaller pieces like a couple of seconds and, Shakir Mukhamadullin or something? Yeah.
I think the Chicago sports fan is very similar to the New York sports fan in a lot of ways, where there are I'm not talking New Jersey, I'm talking New York. There is a very small pack of like the diehards, right? They understand the value in prospects and picks and stuff like that. But I think because Chicago's so big and there are so many casual sports fans around, that the main consensus on trading DeBrincat for anything is going to be negative. Because these people don't want them to trade the guy who scored a crap ton of goals and has proven that he can play with Patrick Kane. He can drive his own line. He's proven it. He played with Kirby Dach at one point and they were fine. Kirby Dach is not a centerman that drives offense like Kane or, Taves even in his advanced age or advanced, I don't know, health. I don't know what you want to call it. But
Injury history.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's going to be negative reception at first, but I think in the end, people will realize that if they did it, it would be smart. I was with you on your trade proposal until you added the 2023 pick. They're not getting that. They're not getting 2 firsts and 2. They're not getting 2 firsts, a high A prospect and a B prospect like Foote. There's just no way. And if they got a first an A prospect and a B prospect, I think that would be a really good trade for both teams because Holtz can turn out to be as productive of a goal scorer as DeBrincat, and we saw Nolan Foote can be a bottom six forward right now. And then you never know what happens with your second overall pick. That's on you. But yeah, so I overall think it's going to be a negative reaction if they do trade him.
So all the discourse, all the second overall pick, we're still hearing people say there's going to be chaos at the top of the draft. Do you think it's going to be a wild night in Montreal in the first round, or do you think we're going to go pretty quiet?
I think tomorrow's going to be a wild day, to be honest. Because there's so much uncertainty at the top of the draft, there might be teams willing to take a chance. There might be teams that think they're smarter than everybody else. Montreal has that 33rd overall pick and then a late 20s pick that they acquired in a trade. So they have 3 picks in the top 33. If they moved out of one, I would be kind of surprised, but also I wouldn't, because it doesn't sound to me from what I've read and what I've listened to. I mean, I'm taking in I'm listening to you guys. I'm listening to what Elliot Friedman is saying on the Sportsnet shows. Everybody's tweeting his quotes, and I'm following it closely, and I'm wondering, it's like it doesn't seem like Montreal is dead set on Shane Wright. And if they took Slavkovsky and the Devils landed Wright, and if you told me going into the season that the Devils would come out adding Shane Wright to their young core, I would have just assumed they won the lottery again. But, at the same time, do they move out of the pick? Do they trade with Philly to 5 and still get a really good player, and Philly gets the player they want, and the Devils maybe get I don't know, who's a prospect Philly or has that the Devils might want? I personally hope that no matter what the Devils do, it leads them to landing something or someone that can play next season. I believe Slavkovsky and Wright probably can play in the NHL next season, or if they traded it to Chicago, if they traded it to, I hear Nazem Kadri's name out there. I don't necessarily think he's the best fit for the Devils, but what if Nylander or Marner all of a sudden become available tomorrow? You would think Toronto's going to try and shake things up at some point. They keep having these first round exits, even though they played the buzzsaw of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if they were playing anybody else, they probably would have at minimum made it to the conference finals. Are they going to overreact? I do think there's going to be a bit of chaos tomorrow, to say it a lot simpler.
One guy I really like in Philly is Bobby Brink. He's super small.
Bobby or Brink.
Super small. But
yeah, he is small. And the Devils
they're already small.
Yeah.
So and yeah, there's a lot. Oh, man, there's so many small players that they want to add. So let's talk about free agency, because we're not going to have you on before free agency starts. So I kind of want to get your idea on what you want. Do you want them to give, let's say it costs $10.2 to get Johnny Gaudreau? Are you signing on the dotted line? 7 years, $10.2.
Oh, man. A player making double digits against the cap has never won the Stanley Cup. And that is something that strongly concerns me. The cap is going to go up. ESPN and Turner are feeding money into this league. The cap is going to go up. I know COVID kept it flat for what? Yeah. Are we in year 3 of it being flat now?
It went up eventually, but yeah.
Yeah, that's not significant enough for me to be like, yeah, let's sign everyone. But I do think eventually a $10 million player is going to win the cup. Nathan McKinnon is worth that much. And when he gets paid that much, is Colorado going to fall off? The answer is probably yes. Cale Makar might be worth more than McKinnon. And it's just insane to think about. And people go, oh, what about Taves and Kane? Taves and Kane made the $10 million kicked in the year after they won the 3rd Stanley Cup. And I'm trying to think of the other 10 million players. Carey Price, no. Came close, but no. McDavid, no. All the best teams are constructed without a $10 million player. Now, if it's 10.2.
Now, but let me just to say one thing. The Tampa Bay Lightning have 3 $9 million players on their team. So it's like, I get it. They got Kucherov, who's making 9.5. They have Vasilevsky, who I think is making 9.5. And then what does Hedman make? Does Hedman make 8.75, or does he make over 9?
Hedman's got to be in the nines, and then Hedman's got to be in the nines, and then Stamkos is at 8.5. So I understand your sentiment, and the thing the Devils have going for them, if Hischier has 80 points next year and is a top 10 Selke Award vote getter, and he's making 7.5, that's a steal. And if Hughes has 100 points, like he was on pace for this year, if he could just stay healthy, please, Jack, he's making 8.5. You got your two franchise centers at a combined $5 million. Or $15 million, I mean. Sorry, $15 million between the two of them. That's like what Nathan McKinnon is going to be worth on the open market. And you hope Luke Hughes comes in and as on an entry-level deal is as effective as Ty Smith was in the short season, maybe even better. Maybe Ty Smith takes a step forward. McLeod's certainly not going to be making all this money. Boquist is probably going to be a solid fourth liner for relatively cheap. I like some of the players that came up and were contributing this year. Kevin Ball, Ahotuk, Zetterlund, all those guys, they're going to be relatively cheap too. So yes, I would give Johnny Gaudreau the bag to come over. I think he would really make this team awesome.
Before I let you go, Vinny, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us. Wait, did you give me an answer though? Do you want Johnny Gaudreau?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We want Johnny Gaudreau. Okay. Is there any other free agents, like any other like outside the box guys that you're looking at that you really want the Devils to target?
I hope they sign a goalie to pair with Blackwood, and one that is kind of a seasoned veteran, like. Not a seasoned veteran might not be the proper word, because if they got like Ville Husso from the Blues, I wouldn't be upset. Bringing over Braden Holtby to back up Blackwood and then start if needed at any point, I think is something to consider. Nico Daws, to me, he was really good last year. He should not have been playing as much as he did last year, and that was largely because of injury and situation and all sorts of different reasons. But that wasn't his fault. I think for being thrust into that role, he was admirable. Me and Sam talked about Nico Daws in a positive light a lot on the Game Day Live shows we did. But, I mean, I would go for a goalie. Holtby, they're not going to get Fleury. But, like, if Fleury wanted to for whatever reason, I mean, I would have never thought Corey Crawford would choose them. And then, I know Crawford retired, but for whatever reason.
He kind of didn't.
He did choose to come to the New Jersey Devils. Maybe another former Blackhawk goalie will do it and not decide to retire this time.
That'd be nice. I would enjoy that. And before we go, we have one Facebook comment from David Chimes. He asked about Vincent Trocheck. Do you think the Devils might go for Vincent Trocheck?
Vincent Trocheck would be a pretty solid add to their middle six. But you wrote a piece about somebody from Florida. Who was it from Florida
Giroux.
that I wanted them to add? It wasn't Giroux. Maybe it wasn't you. Marchment. It was Marchment. He would be awesome. I would rather a guy like that. But Trocheck, I mean, he was solid this season. There's no doubt for Carolina, and he was a playoff guy. And talking about, a guy performing in the playoffs is nice. The Devils kind of got to get there first, which has been a problem for the last 10 years, except one. So, but if they could figure it out, they really could make something of adding a guy like that. So, yeah, I would personally sign up for it, if for nothing else.
All right, Vinnie Parisi, Pucks and Pitchforks, The Windy City, Sox Showdown, so many other things. You got the podcast, you got the writing, you're doing a million things. Vinnie, what are you doing for the draft tomorrow?
Okay, so for the Blackhawks, we got goalies we're looking at, and forwards we're looking at in the second round. And really, Devils fans can read these things too, because all my analysis on the players is just going to be simply about the players. So you can take those things and kind of think about it from a Devils fan's point of view, because I'm certainly going to be doing that in my brain while I'm writing it. And then, as far as the Devils, instant reactions to the moves they make, the player they draft, whoever it is going to be my new guy, and I'm going to write about them frequently. And my main goal, right when this will probably be for Friday to go up on Friday morning, when the Devils make their pick, I'm going to start thinking about, okay, who's this going to affect? Who's it going to help? Is Jack Hughes going to get to play with Slafkowski? If it's Slafkowski, reasons to play him with Hughes, reasons to play him with Hischier, how he fits in here, all sorts of that kind of stuff. So a lot of X's and O stuff comes to mind with the second overall pick business, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It'll all be coming in throughout the weekend.
We love to hear that. We love the content from Vinnie Parisi, one of our main guys. How long have you been with us, Vinnie? How long have you been here? Were we at 4 years, 5 years?
It'll be 4 years in August.
Okay. Coming up to the 4-year anniversary of the day that Vinnie Parisi changed my life and he applied to pucksandpitchforks.com. Vinnie, thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for coming on, spending 30 minutes with us and Devils fans talking about this. Busy day today. It'll be a busy day tomorrow, but I appreciate having you on. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Sam, Nick, we'll be talking throughout the whole draft. Very much looking forward to hearing from you guys.
And I'll talk to you about the schedule afterwards.
Let's
go. Game Day Live.
Game Day Live. I got that music stuck in my head already.
That's Vinnie Parisi of Pucks and Pitchforks blog, the Windy City. He's all over the place. I should have had that music queued up for Vinnie when he was on. I should ask him about the Bolognese. Let's get him back on.
More.
How's the Bolognese at Enzo's?
I was just about. I love that. I get extra time. Bolognese 4-0, right? 4-0 when you eat the Bolognese. You better be eating that stuff all season long.
4-0.
You talked about the schedule. December 9th, my birthday. They play the New York Islanders at home. It's a Friday night, and then they go over to Madison Square Garden on Monday to play the Rangers. So the 9th, and then Saturday's the 10th, Sunday's the 12th. It'll be the 12th against the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. That's my goal, is to be in the metropolitan area for that week. So we're working on it.
Well, Vinny, you heard that the boy, Nick Villano, is returning to the metropolitan area next month. So if you come out full time, we are done with Florida. 100% Jersey boy is back at better than ever.
That is going to be the weekend. I'm going to make it happen. Mark it on your calendars right now. Pucks and Pitchforks, Let's Go Devils podcast. Meet and greet, Taj Lounge, drinks, food, chicken wings,
Garden Invasion.
It'll be my birthday, December the 9th.
It's on Sam's dime.
December 9th, Sam. New York Islanders, right. Taj Lounge 973, and then we'll make a trip up to the train station on Monday.
Save them pennies, Thank you, man. Save them pennies.
Save the pennies.
Pucks and Pitchforks, contributor.
Give a piece in the morning.
That's Vinnie Parisi. Extended time. We've got a lot of people on YouTube. Woo! I want to go through some of these comments. I know we've been at it because they've been commenting, and I just said, John Sumner, they need to trade for Hellebuck. Joseph says no Fleury
for a while.
Joseph says no Fleury. Devils have had enough old goalie issues. Also says Montreal doesn't have the guts to take anyone but Wright. Let's see here.
I'm kind of with you there because they're in Montreal. If they were anywhere else, if they were in Tampa, if they were in Dallas, if they were in Los Angeles, okay, Montreal could go off the board, but they're in Montreal. I think they're taking Wright.
A little Fireboy. Lindros not playing a full season really says how good he actually was. It's insane. Shane Van Sickle. Yeah. Bettman. We have a trade to announce. Remember that?
Yeah.
2013?
Yeah. I mean, people are calling for another big moment. I think that there could be another big moment like that where Bettman tells the Boo Birds to quiet down.
John says, can we trade Merrill and a third for all this recent media drama, trade rumors? I just want some poutine. I don't know what that's all about.
I think that was a reference to when we all thought that Merrill, Jelena, and Urbam were going to be the trade pieces to get us a superstar. I'm guessing. Maybe that's what that was.
Joey B says, Logan Cooley, not physical enough to handle Eastern Conference. Got to draft bigger kids that can bang.
He's on your beef train, but you're off the beef train. You've gotten off the beef train at the Cooley exit.
Yeah, I mean, definitely DeBrincat, absolutely Cooley. Little thing about, I just want to just comment about a couple things I learned tonight. Number one, Slavkovsky. This has nothing. This is not a knock on him, but it seems like there are some, and the Devils could be guilty of it too. There's a lot of hype around this kid. But really, the eve before the draft, you don't really know what Montreal, New Jersey, or anybody is going to do.
And after that, it's who knows? You're not even.
Yeah.
I mean, Arizona, you kind of know if Cooley's there, they're going to take Cooley.
Yeah.
And if Wright's there, they're going to take Wright. But besides that, no clue. I have no idea what Philly is doing. I have no idea what Columbus is doing. Who's for Seattle? I have no idea what Seattle's doing.
What if the Devils did this? Say if Shane Wright goes number one. Devils take Cooley. Arizona's pissed and wants to swap. And the Devils tell them to pick, is it Nemec? Is it or Nemec or Nemec? Whatever.
Nemec. I can't say it. I'm
done. Whatever. That defenseman. But you're going to have to give up 3 second rounders or something like that. Wouldn't that be something?
This. What did and we're coming to the end, but what did the Giants give up to get Eli?
Oh, third rounder. I remember there was third rounder wound up being a punter. They gave up a lot. They gave up a lot to get Eli Manning.
I'm going to look it up real quick before we go, because I think that's what you're looking at here. That's I know football and hockey don't go one for one, but there's not a lot of precedence for this. So let's see. They gave up 3 draft picks. What were the draft picks?
1, 2, and 3, and then 2 and 3. They swapped first round draft picks.
It just says, why can't give me what? Oh, here we go. Okay. Talk for a while and let me just figure out what these numbers were.
The other thing, too, is Johnny Gaudreau. What overpaying him could bring to the New Jersey Devils. Just remember, we are just a month removed from the New York Rangers getting into the Eastern Conference Finals and almost getting into the Stanley Cup Finals. You would have to think that Devils management are feeling it, that if the Rangers do become a perennial Stanley Cup contender, that it would affect the franchise, it would affect how the fan base would feel, and also you would have to think as well that all that hard work over the years to try to build this Devils fan base, you're going to have a whole generation that rather be Ranger fans. And that does affect the Devils' bottom line. So you have to think like that as well. And getting a superstar like Johnny Gaudreau is kind of like, yeah, we can play this game too. Just a thought. Are you still looking that up?
Yeah, this is so okay, hold on. So the Giants got Eli Manning. The San Diego Chargers got Phillip Rivers, the third-round pick in 2004, and then the Giants' first and fifth-round picks in 2005.
That's crazy.
So that's a deal. And Matt, if the Devils could do something like that, where you hold Arizona over a barrel, where you say, you call them, you say, Cooley's there. How much for Cooley? And they're like, we're just going to take him because you know you don't want him. And then you take him. And then you ask them, what are you going to give us next year? I don't think they'll give the first. I think you can get 2 seconds, though. They have a lot of second-round picks. They have a ton.
Yeah.
They really want Cooley, and they've fallen in love with Cooley. That's the situation. If they could end up with no center, I think they're going to be upset. Because the Jacob Chychrun situation is not really working out the way they were hoping. They thought he was traded by now. They thought somebody was going to give them a Godfather offer, and nobody has. Yeah, I think that's one to watch.
Yep. And Mecco 271 says Nick with the sick flow.
Oh yeah, the hair. Sam. There might not be a lot of podcasts with the hair anymore.
I know. I mean, my hair. I canceled my haircut appointment because we have a podcast tomorrow at Pasta Grill by Enzo's on 1916 Route 57 in beautiful Hackettstown, New Jersey, in the heart of Warren County, Mansfield section, where you can watch us do a live podcast. Live for the NHL draft. Gonna have to figure out how to do this because you got people watching the draft, people watching us, avoiding the copyright issues when you have the TV blaring and all that. So I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we're gonna do it. And we'll bring you live. And those that are going to the Stone Pony for the Devil's Shindig, you can watch us. You can comment while you're waiting in line for Dougie Hamilton. You better watch us. You better show Dougie. Be like, hey, these boys like you. I think you should follow the Let's Go Devils podcast. And if you can get a picture, we'll have prizes. I don't know what yet. But if you can get a picture of Dougie Hamilton with your phone, with the Let's Go Devils podcast going on, you send that to us. You're going to win something. Don't know yet, and we'll make it worth your while.
Maybe we'll get you the pork roll hat.
No, that doesn't exist. All right, never mind. All right, it's getting late. It's getting late, Nick.
We're getting punchy.
Yeah, so what's on pucksandpitchforks.com? What do you have to plug? I've already plugged all night about our shindig.
Now, the big thing is the mock draft is there. Go check out my mock draft. 7-round mock draft, 9 picks in total. I picked every player I think the Devils are going to take. Like I said, I didn't see a lot of players falling in this particular mock draft. So I do think there's going to be a couple players that fall that the Devils will take. But for what was available to me, I picked what I thought was the best. My 3rd-round pick is my favorite of all the picks. Check that out. I took all, we have 3, 4th-round picks this year? I took all 3 4th-round picks. There's one in there that's pretty interesting, and he's a person who fell. Lots of players. I took the goalie. I took a goalie because a lot of the ones I wanted weren't on the board anymore. Lots of things happening with the mock draft. I also wrote about the Jesper Bratt situation right before this podcast, so that's on Pucks and Pitchforks right now. Tomorrow, I'm going to write a quick piece on 3rd-round picks that I think the Devils should be interested in. The 2nd-round picks piece is already out. There's a million draft pieces out there. If you go to pucksandpitchforks.com, if you look at the tab at the top, there's one that says draft. Click on that. You'll get every draft piece that we've written. You can just kind of dig through it, make it your own draft guide. Make sure – I just want to thank all the guests we had tonight. Gavin Chiasson, Jack Dawkins, Josh Wegman, Vinnie Parisi, and Sebastian, all of them just a phenomenal job. Thank you so much all for coming on. Make sure to check out their work too. They're all doing great work. They're going to have Vinnie Parisi is going to have great work on pucksandpitchforks.com, but check out everybody else's draft work and prospect work because they were gracious with. It's a very busy time for them, and they were gracious with their time tonight.
Yeah, especially coming from Europe. 2 a.m. out there.
Right.
Also, we're going to drop the podcast, sprinkle it over wherever you get your podcast tomorrow for your morning commute and afternoon commute. There's a lot of information in this podcast about some of the scouting. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart app, Amazon Music Prime, Audible, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be dropping it soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Lots of people tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Let's Go Devils. Follow us on Facebook. And also like our Facebook page. Because you want to keep it here. We got a big podcast tomorrow. Live from Pasta Grill by Enzo's. Check out pucksandpitchforks.com. Nick, great job putting the podcast together. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back that great job technical producing, although you screwed up 15 times. That's all right.
We kept it together for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yes, we did. All right. We'll see you tomorrow from Enzo's. Till next time, let's go Devils.